Understand how business even works in California. Why people start businesses and companies don't move out in mass. And there are a bunch of reasons. We talked about it, the weather, the technology, the education of the workers, I mean, all of that. You know, the worker skill level. But the bottom line is California will always be pro-union. Now let's go to Atlanta, Mississippi, Texas. What do you think's going to happen there? Unionization, matter of fact, California, we're a union charter here at KFI. You have to be part of the union. That's the negotiation. You go to, and I don't even know this, but I'd like to find this out. I don't have time to ask Siri. I'm willing to bet that every radio station in Texas is non-union. I'm willing to bet that virtually every business is non-union. And so to declare on a federal level that the NLRB is unconstitutional rips apart federal government, the agencies. And they might win. That's the issue. I mean, this court is going to change the way we live in this country. Which, by the way, people bitch and moan about this court. Oh, we don't want this court. Hey, read the Constitution. You were perfectly happy when it was a super liberal court under the Warren court, under Earl Warren. And now it's gone the other way and become super conservative. And all Donald Trump did is follow the Constitution. I know that's hard to believe. Follow the Constitution. He nominates and the Senate confirms. And he was able to nominate 3 judges. And he got the nomination through because you had a Republican Senate who confirms. Hey, you know, the rules were followed. You don't like it? Too bad. Them's are the rules. And this court is going to overturn a whole lot of stuff. Roe v. Wade. You think? All right, coming up, the response to the State of the Union, which has been going on for decades. In this case, it's a Republican response because the State of the Union is by a Democratic president. It goes the other way, too, when you have a Republican president. Now, that response can make or break a political career. How important is it? It can be very important or not important at all. But this time around, it literally became an SNL skit. It was that entertaining. And I'll come back with that because this is just fun. And that's before Steve Gregory comes aboard at 8 o'clock talking about what happened at the Oscars. He was there. And then Wayne, Resnick, and me, do they have a case on this Monday morning? Let's check in with Amy live in the KFI 24-hour newsroom.
Hollywood's biggest night is in the books. Oppenheimer was the evening's top winner with 7 Oscars, including first Oscar wins for actors Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr., and also director Christopher Nolan. Emma Stone won Best Actress for Poor Things, and Divine Joy Randolph won Best Supporting Actress for The Holdovers. Hundreds of protesters showed up for the Oscars. The LAPD broke up the protest at about 2:45. Organizers called for a ceasefire and denounced what they called Hollywood's active support of genocide of the Palestinians. Voter turnout in Southern California, pretty dismal for the primary election. 19% of voters in LA County cast ballots. It was also 19% in Riverside County and even lower in San Bernardino County, just 15%. 26% of Orange County voters turned out, and San Diego's voting rate is at 25%. Might change a little bit as more mail-in ballots are counted. We'll check some problems with the KFI in the sky next.
It used to be where you made a decision to sell your house. It was an easy one. You listed it. You paid 6%, and then the broker would take over and go ahead and arrange for prospective buyers to come through. You had to paint and clean and repair. You couldn't be there when a buyer came through, and you had offers and counter offers and contingencies, and you had to live a spotless life, which none of us do. And so it was not easy. Now it is easy. Well, it used to be easy. Then it got not easy because mortgage interest rates have exploded. So let me tell you a very different, easy way to sell your house and still get a fair price. And that is with directbuyers.com. No commission, no listing. Nobody even walks through your house. It is that simple. You get paid in cash within 10 days or less and they'll even arrange a $15,000 cash advance before closing. That's directbuyers.com. Call 844-242-SELL, 844-242-SELL. Visit directbuyers.com.
Becoming sunny with highs in the low to mid-60s, 50s with gusty winds in the Antelope Valley. This report brought to you by Caltrans Clean California. Got a crash in Encino on the 101.
It's going to be the 101 freeway as you head westbound there. We don't have a sign of that crash. It looks like it may have been cleared, but both sides of the freeway are pretty slow. Eastbound side starts to slow from Topanga Canyon on all the way into Studio City. Westbound side slow from the 101, from the 170 over to White Oak, where we did have that earlier crash. Some big closures to report. Topanga Canyon completely shut down there between Grandview and PCH because of a rock slide. Also PCH itself closed between Los Flores and Point Magoo there, just north of LA County. Same situation. Big cleanup is needed. We'll close right with KFI in the sky.
Fleas and ticks suck. Literally. Stop sucking with Seresto. The longest lasting protection for 8 continuous months in an easy-to-wear pollen-proof net. Stop fleas and ticks from sucking. Search for Seresto on Amazon today. They sell liquidly. In this week's Marketers Report, we learn about the value of local influencers in uncertain times. From Allison Griffin, head of marketing at State Farm.
The economy is tough for everyone, and taking a step back and understanding the pain that your customers are currently going through because of a tough environment is really important. We have 19,000 agents across the country, and they understand what's going on in those very unique communities. iHeart has such a broad broadcast reach that is local, connected, and for us to be able to touch customers with a local feel but at a national scale is so efficient and important for us.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to all, from national to local. Every audience, live conversations, trusted influencers, and the insights and data you need to grow. Not just a media company, iHeartMedia is your access company. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
Simply starting is what matters most. That's why with Peloton bikes, you get thousands of classes, so you can find the one that will get you going.
My name is Jerry Maxfield. Welcome to your low-impact ride.
With instructors that take the guesswork out of working out.
I'm here for you every step of the way.
And Peloton Entertainment, so you can watch your favorite shows and live sports as you ride. Get started with a Peloton bike or bike plus rental at onepeloton.com/bike/rentals. Terms apply.
BMW i4 M50. It's 100% electric and 100% BMW. Experience the power of over 500 horses stampeding in a whisper as BMW M-engineered handling takes you through every twist and turn. The complete suite of intuitive technology keeps you connected. The pure performance keeps your heart racing. The BMW i4 M50. Silence has never said so much. BMW, the ultimate electric driving machine. See a SoCal BMW Center today for exceptional offers, or visit SoCalBMW.com. If you're looking to sell your home, call Seller's Advantage. They'll make you a cash offer with no need for repairs. With Seller's Advantage, there are no agents that can close in days. They buy with cash. They may even offer a $10,000 advance to help with moving. Check out the reviews online. Call for no obligation offer. 888-321-AS-IS. 888-321-AS-IS. 888-321-2747. SellersAdvantage.com.
Don't worry, sound happy with Seller's Advantage.
DRA number 01961658.
The free iHeartRadio app has over 100 original stations like 24/7 comedy.
If we really don't have holes, the back will be empty.
When you need to laugh, just open the free iHeartRadio app and search comedy.
Should we call someone? No, that's his face.
iHeartRadio. Free never sounded so good.
I don't know why my meal's more expensive because of weather events. I always say to my wife, hey, babe, I don't know if we can afford this meal. She said, why is that? I go, weather event. Weather events. What are you talking about? I don't know. I heard it in the news. Weather events. I don't know what that means.
The Tim Conley Jr. Show.
You have anything on the menu that hasn't been affected by the weather?
Live 4 to 7 p.m. on KFI.
And on demand anytime on the iHeartRadio app. KFI AM 640. Bill Handel on a Monday morning, March 11th, as we continue. Coming up at 8 o'clock, Steve Gregory, who was at the Oscars last night, and we'll talk to him, and then they have a case with Wayne coming up also. Now, a little bit about the response to the State of the Union. Actually, it's been going on for 30, 40 years. So you have, for example, in this case, a Democratic president giving the State of the Union address, and then immediately following, you have in this case, a Republican rebuttal. And it goes the other way, too. Republican president, Democratic rebuttal. So this time around, they had Republican Senator Katie Britt of Alabama. She is the junior senator of Alabama. And as I said earlier, these responses can make or break careers. Some are very well done. Some are just ridiculous. Well, last night it wasn't last night, I'm sorry. It was, what was it, Wednesday? I'm trying to remember the day of the address. Thursday was the State of the Union. The last few days have sort of blurred for me. Anyway, Senator Katie Britt of Alabama delivered the response. And they tried to make it homey. Now, this became insanely entertainment. That's it. That's what it's become. And social media exploded, mocking everything from her, quote, acting class energy to her decision to make the address from her kitchen. And then the argument is maybe some people in the GOP say, I think that that's where women belong, and her breathless delivery. So because it was so wonderful, Saturday Night Live piled on this weekend. Scarlett Johansson, a surprise appearance, and she's portraying the senator in the opening sketch. And let's do a couple of takes on this, because this is very funny.
Tonight, I'll be auditioning for the part of Scary Mom. I'll be performing an original monologue called This Country is Hell. My husband Wesley and I just watched President Biden's speech, and what I saw was the performance of a permanent politician. But me, I'm not performing. I'm not.
Yeah, and then there was the whole issue of, remember the cross she was wearing? So Saturday Night Live made a big deal about the cross is huge. You can buy this cross. It was crazy. Former President Trump, of course, praised her for delivering what he called a great speech that was compassionate and caring. If you watch the Academy Awards, Jimmy Kimmel actually got a tweet from the president. I thought it was shtick when he read it. I thought it was part of the show. It was real. I mean, it was, well, it's all part of the entertainment. And she blamed Biden for the border crisis, and he, in quote, invited it with his executive action. So during the speech, she tells the story of a woman she met on the Texas side of the southern border who told her about having been sex trafficked by the cartels starting at the age of 12. Quote, she told me not that she was she was raped every day, but how many times a day she was raped. We wouldn't be okay with this happening in a third world country, but this is the United States. And we have to start acting like it. And President Biden's border policies are a disgrace. The problem is, the story this woman told, it happened in Mexico, and it happened during the George Bush administration, but that doesn't matter. You take a fact that happened in another place, in another administration, you bring it here and say, look, that proves what our border is like. And wait a minute, it had nothing to do with our border. It was the cartels. Who did it? So, nobody cares. The problem is, nobody cares. It's this crazy. It really is. And so, how polarized are we? Facts don't matter at all. As a matter of fact, facts do matter when you misstate them, lie about them, put them in other places, other time zones. And that's what happened last night. And her delivery was so ridiculous and breathless. I mean, it was crazy. It's worth looking at that little speech on YouTube. Let me put it this way. It's no surprise. It's only helped. The base thinks that it's great. The base thinks that from our kitchen is great. By the way, did you notice that our kitchen counters had nothing on them? No toaster, no coffee machine, nothing. All right, coming up, Steve Gregory. We're going to talk about the Oscars. I've got two questions that I have always asked of Steve. And he was there, as he has been for the last 20-something years. So we'll talk to Steve coming up, and then do they have a case with Wayne at 8:30. KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
If it doesn't affect you, we're not interested.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
Leaving the family behind. I'm Amy King, live from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. A man accused of ditching his family while running away from a crash in South LA has been arrested.
Police say the man left behind a woman, her 5-month-old baby, and a 7-year-old. All three were taken to a hospital. The infant was in critical condition, and the 7-year-old was complaining of body pain. The man crashed his car into a power pole around 2 a.m. yesterday. Photos from the scene show the car's hood smashed into the pole with blood outside the car's passenger door. Reporting live in downtown LA, Blake Trolley, KFI News.
News brought to you by Service Champions. A man in Wilmington has been fatally shot by 3 guys who went to his home. Police say the man in the house went outside last night. There was confrontation. One of the guys outside shot him. Police say the shooter and 2 others then got into a car and drove off. The 3 are said to be between 15 and 20 years old. A stretch of PCH has been closed in Malibu because of a rock slide. It was reported late last night at Big Rock Drive. The road was closed in both directions, so Caltrans crews could clear the road. The highway was still closed this morning because debris is still falling. The LAPWP says it captured more than 13.5 billion gallons of stormwater last month. That's enough to serve nearly 165,000 households for a year, or equal to filling more than 20,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. The city captured 8.4 billion gallons of rainwater in February of last year. Members of tribes in Southern California have graduated the first ever Native American Leadership Academy at the LAPD.
The ceremony was a celebration of partnerships. We wanted to bring them in and not just introduce them to what the LAPD does, but introduce them to LAPD and humanize our officers. Deputy Chief Don Graham organized the 8-week academy with a focus on transit. We're focusing on communities that are not normally seen. That we could bring them together with our partners in LA Metro, tell them about how to access the system, how to navigate the system, about all the programs that are available to support maybe people of lower income. And that was a big hit. Mama Pat's a member of the Tiwa tribe and says she loved every minute of each class. She was one of more than 30 who received certificates last Thursday.
The takeaway is that we are now high profile in our trauma. And through this, hopefully more people will take note of those support systems that we desperately need in our community.
She says there are more than 300,000 Native Americans living in the LA area. Steve Gregory, KFI News.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to meet with Caribbean leaders in Jamaica as part of a push to solve Haiti's violent gang crisis. ABC's Shannon Crawford says yesterday the U.S. military airlifted some U.S. Embassy staff members out of Haiti.
The State Department is urging Americans in the country to leave, while acknowledging that regular citizens may have few or no safe departure options amid escalating gang violence.
The gangs attacked main international airports last month, stopping Haiti's president from returning to the country. They also raided the 2 biggest prisons, releasing more than 4,000 inmates. Oppenheimer has won 7 Academy Awards at the 96th Oscars, including one for Best Picture. The film went in with 13 nominations. Christopher Nolan won for Best Director. Robert Downey Jr. won for Best Supporting Actor. Emma Stone won the award for Best Actress in Poor Things. That film also won for production design, hair and makeup, and costume design. Divine Joy Randolph won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her role in The Holdovers. She played a cafeteria manager mourning the death of her son. Did very, very good, too. Barbie won Best Original Song for What Was I Made For? You can see more of KFI Oscar coverage at kfiam640.com/Oscars. And a film following a team of 4 people who fix and maintain musical instruments used by students in the LA School District has won the Oscar for Best Documentary Short. Makers of The Last Repair Shop say the win is a victory in support of music education. They're also trying to raise money for the repair program. And as you heard Bill mention, Steve Gregory's going to be on with him in just a few minutes to talk more Oscars. We'll check some problems on the 10 with the KFI in the Sky next.
If you have varicose veins, spider veins, I mean, they can be uncomfortable, they can itch, they can hurt, but I'll tell you what they are, ugly. There's no way around that. And if you tried home remedies, cream, supplements, compression socks, nothing works, and you don't wear shorts, let me suggest calling the folks at 800 West Med. Schedule a free, no-obligation consultation. What West Medical can do is erase those varicose veins fast with their state-of-the-art varicose vein solutions. This is very high-tech. And you can return to normal activities almost immediately. West Medical's dedicated vein specialists, and they are specialists, bring decades of experience and have helped thousands of patients, and of course have superb reviews. Treatments are covered by most PPO health insurance plans. Call 800 West Med. Schedule a free consultation. Visit westmedical.com. That's 800 West Med, or visit westmedical.com.
Southland weather from KFI, some low clouds, clear into sunny skies. Highs in the low 60s at the beaches, mid-60s for Metro LA and inland Orange County. Low to mid-60s in the valleys and Inland Empire, 50s in the Antelope Valley. Some areas of drizzle overnight in the IE, otherwise just cloudy skies. Mostly cloudy tomorrow, highs in the mid-60s, warming to about 70 for Wednesday, mid-70s with sunny skies Thursday and through the weekend. It's 50 in Los Alamitos, 40 Santa Clarita, 49 in Orange, 48 in Pasadena. KFI Market Report brought to you by Revive Real Estate. The Dow is trading down 209 points. The NASDAQ is up 58. S&P 500 is up 43.
Revive Real Estate will buy your home, then renovate it, then sell it, and pay you again for the additional profit from the renovation. Go to KFIRevive.com to see if your home qualifies.
Checking out a crash in downtown LA on the 10.
10 freeway west of Roundabout Central, we had reports of a bumper and a car door in the roadway. Now we don't see anything, but we do see a lot of slow traffic as you head through that stretch back from the East LA interchange. You got a break at the 110, and then it's slow again from Western all the way out towards Robertson. Should have mentioned this off the top, but boy, we have a major couple of closures. PCH still completely shut down north of Malibu, and we have a full closure of Topanga Canyon. That's going to be Topanga Canyon between Grandview and PCH. That completely shut down. And a new curfew, 60 westbound. In the Rolling Heights, Hacienda Heights area, it's going to be 60 westbound and 7th Avenue. A hit-and-run crash being investigated there. Will Colschreiber, KFI in the Sky.
Hey, LA Dodger fans, step up to the plate for the Spectrum Season Ticket Sweepstakes. Visit a participating Spectrum store and enter for a chance to win our grand prize, a pair of Los Angeles Dodgers season tickets. Plus, hundreds of bonus winners can win a 50-inch smart TV. Hustle, sweepstakes ends March 17th. For more information and official rules, go to spectrum.com/2024-SWEEPS-LA. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 18 plus in California. Odds of winning vary by location. Void where prohibited.
You'll never know the feeling until you experience it here yourself at Disneyland Resort. Because here, every and is beyond anything you've ever felt before. It's where it becomes on Star Wars: Rise of the Resistance. It's every amazing feeling ever, all at once. It's that feeling when you're at Disneyland Resort. And there's no better time than now. It's Disney. Look out for more details. Reservation required for entry.
Listen on the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, sports, talk, and podcasts. Free never sounded so good. KFI AM 640. You are listening to The Bill Handle Show.
KFI AM 640. Bill Handle here. It is Monday morning, March 11th, the day after the Oscars. And the Oscars are fairly important here in Southern California. Number one, because it's a company town, and a huge number of the actors and actresses, and that's a little politically incorrect, live here. And a lot of the filming is done here. And also, our own Steve Gregory has been covering the Oscars and is there every year and has been for, I don't know, a couple of decades. Steve used to be an entertainment reporter and has been credentialed to the Oscars for how long, Steve?
Last night was 22 for me.
22nd time. And are you still excited about it, or is it kind of, you have to do it?
You know, that's a great question. I think once I get in there and I get settled, then I'm fine. So then I kind of get into the zone, and then I know what I'm doing and how to cover things. But the getting there, you know, I don't like wearing a suit. You got to take a shuttle bus from the ArcLight Theater for security reasons and because of parking, and then you got to go through 2 different security. I mean, it's worse than going through LAX to get in there, and then you're cramped in there because they have just so many media packed into this ballroom, which they consider the backstage area, and so all of that, you know, all of the logistics part of it is, I mean, they do a great job. Don't get me wrong, but you know, as I get older, I get grumpier and I get more intolerant.
The winners all congregate. They go into that room with you, correct?
So here's how it works. So when you see on stage, someone gets a statue and they walk off stage. First of all, the statue's blank. Their name isn't on that statue. That's a dummy statue or a placeholder. They walk off stage and then they have a couple choices. A lot of times they might go back into the audience because either they're nominated for something else or their film is nominated for something else, or frankly, they don't feel like going backstage to do all of the pomp and circumstance. So they might just go right back out to the audience. If they don't, then they come backstage and they're going to go through this gauntlet of one-on-one rooms. They call them the one-on-one rooms. They're just booths set up in some big open area that backstage. That's for like the Today Show, CBS This Morning, Entertainment Tonight. They all have their own little booths, and then they'll do one-on-one interviews. Then they go into the photo room, and that's just nothing but photographers on these little risers. And then they'll be photographed with the official photographs from the Academy and all the different wire services. Then they'll come into our room, which is called the interview room, but that's the big room, and that's where all of the reporters are at, and that's where they ask the Q&A. That's basically, they come up there, they give us these numbers like in an auction, and there's these big, large numbers on our cards, and then if we want to ask something of a winner or any guest backstage, then we have to hold our card up, and then there's a moderator in the room that literally looks around and says, okay, 108's up first, 321 second, and 112 is on deck.
Right. Does the moderator know who you are? No. How many times have you been able to ask a question?
That's something that's been a little controversial over the years because some people have been called on multiple times and others have never been called on. For some reason, the moderator has a crush on Sam Rubin, and he gets called on. Last night he got called on quite a bit, and others didn't. But she's supposed to sit there and keep track. She's got a notepad there, and she's kind of keeping track. But there's a bit of a strategy on how to, like, you know, early on I remember I was asking questions right off the shoot because I just wanted to ask everyone questions, and then I realized I was kind of overdoing it. So then when it came time for all the big winners at the end, I was never called on.
So obviously the Cillian Murphys are the ones that have the most attention, and the Christopher Nolans. Was Cillian Murphy out there? Did he play the game, as it were?
Yeah, he came back. You know, it was great to see him. Christopher Nolan came back there. I was looking forward to seeing those two guys and the composer, but the composer didn't come backstage, even though he won Best Original Score for Oppenheimer. Ludwig Göransson. I was looking forward to talking with him backstage, but he didn't make it. And Robert Downey Jr. did not come backstage. Everybody else did. And it was interesting because sometimes what happens when the show is over, we're still working backstage, and then we've only got 2 hours to finish our work, and then they kick us out. So we have to wait in that 2 hours and hope that the rest of the winners from the night come backstage. Sometimes it bottlenecks. And then, you know, or sometimes they just won't show up at all. So we're really just sitting there waiting to see who comes up next.
And, of course, you know, coming back, I'm going to ask you the question I always ask.
I know you are.
The most important question.
Ready.
Also, were you there, hang on, were you there when the first foreign film won Best Picture? You remember that, A Star is Born from Sweden?
No. Stop. Just stop.
Okay. Fine. We're going to come back and talk Steve. I know. Come on. How could I not throw that in?
Too early.
Oh, yes. Coming back with Steve, who was there last night, as he is every year, and gives us the inside scoop, gives us inside baseball like nobody else can, because he's there. And, of course, he reports for us. And we'll be back with Steve. The question of the day, I always ask Steve, always, the most important question of all of them. We're coming back with that. In the meantime, let's check in with Amy live in the KFI 24-hour newsroom.
The Muslim holy month of Ramadan has arrived without a ceasefire agreement in Gaza. Prayers were held late yesterday in Rafah outside demolished buildings. Some people hung fairy lights and decorations in packed tent camps. Families would ordinarily break the daily fast with holiday feasts, but food is scarce this year. Some parents of UC Berkeley students have hired a security team to help patrol near campus. They say they're tired of bringing safety concerns up to UC Berkeley officials, only to be told there's nothing that can be done to improve safety. No grand prize winner on Saturdays pushed the Powerball jackpot up to $532 million for tonight's drawing. Tomorrow night, a massive Mega Millions jackpot is up for grabs. It's estimated at $735 million. Some areas of low clouds making way for sunny skies, highs in the upper 50s to mid-60s. This report brought to you by Fantastic Sam's from the Southern California Toyota Dealers Traffic Center. Let's go places. We've got a crash in Fullerton on the 57.
57 southbound, right there at your Melinda Boulevard crash in a couple of the lanes there. We're on our way to see what's exactly going on. 60 westbound at 7th Avenue. Hit and run still being investigated there. And another possible crash. This one actually looks like it's causing more slowing. On the 60 westbound, right around, just before the 605, basically. And if you are trying to get through the canyons, like Topanga Canyon, PCH, those two avenues are completely shut down until further notice because of mud and rock debris that fell on the roadway. Will Goldstripe for KFI in the Sky.
Me encanta el diseño de interiores. Busco combinar un estilo moderno y mitad de siglo, una galería de terracota y una alfombra abstracta. Oh, se ve lindo. Entregas gratis en un día para la decoración de tu hogar y millones de productos más. Lo que te gusta está en Prime.
College hoops fans, it's tournament time. The thrill and excitement of March Mania is here, and you can get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps. New customers bet on any college basketball national tournament game and turn $5 into $150 instantly in bonus bets. That's right. To celebrate college basketball's most frenzied time of the year, DraftKings is giving new customers a shot to rack up some bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use promo code iHeart. New customers can bet $5 to get $150 instantly in bonus bets only with DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code iHeart. That's promo code iHeart. The crown is yours. Must be 21 or older. Indiana only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/bball. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Tanya here, and there are many ways that we can all help raise awareness around HIV, but maybe the most important is just talking about it openly and honestly. There's no cure for HIV, but there are effective treatments that, taken as prescribed, can help you live healthy with HIV and get to and stay undetectable, which means the amount of the virus is so low it can't be measured by lab tests. If you're living with HIV and not on treatment, talk to your doctor about treatment options. Learn more at treathivtoday.com. This message was sponsored by Gilead Sciences.
A fraction of a raindrop, 3 grains of salt, at up to 100 times more potent than morphine. The tiniest amount of illegal fentanyl is all it takes to cause an overdose. Fentanyl can be mixed into heroin, cocaine, pressed pills, meth, and other drugs. It could be in your drugs, and you wouldn't be able to see it, taste it, or smell it. Learn more at cdc.gov/stop-overdose.
No matter what the day brings, count on Juicy Juice for the good stuff. Give kids the nutrients of real 100% fruit juice to help them conquer the day. Juicy Juice is only sweetened by the fruit, with no sugar added, no high fructose corn syrup, and no artificial sweeteners. Available in family-sized bottles and juice boxes. Find Juicy Juice at your favorite local grocery retailer. Info at juicyjuice.com.
is a radio ad for Dupixent, dupilumab, a prescription medicine for people 6 months and up with moderate to severe eczema that is not well controlled with topical prescription therapies. But since this is radio, you can't see the effects of Dupixent. You can't see how it helps you stay ahead of your eczema, or how it helps block a key source of inflammation inside the body that could be causing eczema. You can't see how it helps heal your skin from within, but you can see how Dupixent can help you have clearer skin and less itch. Individual results may vary. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Get help right away if you have wheezing, trouble breathing, or swelling of your face, lips, mouth, tongue, throat. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems, such as eye pain, vision changes, or blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor. See for yourself. Ask your eczema specialist about Dupixent. Visit Dupixent.com or call 1-844-DUPIXENT.
In this week's Marketers Report, we hear about the importance of local radio from Allison Griffin, Head of Marketing at State Farm.
iHeart has such a broad broadcast reach that it's local, and for us to be able to touch customers with a local feel but at a national scale is so efficient and important for us.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, trusted influencers, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
If most of the public doesn't feel safe, it's because we're not safe. In Gascon's world, we're all wrong and he's right. You know how you feel. You know what you see. Most of those people in the streets are committing crimes every day. John Cobelt, the deaths are out of control. Nobody can dispute that.
Live 1 to 4 p.m. on KFI and on demand anytime on the iHeartRadio app.
KFI AM 640. Bill Handel here. It is a Monday morning, March 11th. Steve Gregory, who is at the Oscars every single year. This is year number 22. And what he does is he gives us the inside baseball. And I love this every year because it's easy to report who won. Oppenheimer cleaned up. Cillian Murphy, Best Actor. Christopher Nolan, Best Director. Best Film. Yada, yada. We do it. It was, as Mo Kelly said, it was Oppenheimer was Cillian's year. Now, Steve Gregory tells us what's going on behind the scenes. And Steve, the first question I always ask you, which I usually do at the top of the hour, was, how was the food for you guys?
As always, a spectacular spread.
For the reporters.
For the reporters, yes. For all of us in the media rooms, backstage, it's probably the best shrimp cocktail I've ever had. We're talking big, thick, plump, juicy shrimp.
See that? Now, the Governor's Ball is catered by Wolfgang Puck, who has forever. Do you get Wolfgang Puck food?
Well, it's like this. So the hotel prepares it under the direction of Wolfgang Puck.
Okay.
But Wolfgang Puck brings his own caterers in to do the Governor's Ball.
Okay. All right. So, big shrimp. And then, you know what? We're not going to go through the other stuff.
Oh, yeah. Just real quickly, I'll just tell you, sesame chicken skewers, beef empanadas with amazing sauce, grilled veggies, pastas. They had 2 or 3 pastas. They had multiple choices of sandwiches. The desserts were out of this world this year. Lots of cookies, petit fours, cakes, pastries. It was amazing. And then they pace it in a way like when you first get there, they just put out some nosh out there. They put a little bit of crudité out there. It's just some raw vegetables and some sauces. And then they work their way into some meats and cheese with more charcuterie, and then they just ramp it up.
Sounds great. All right, that's Neil, that was your report. That's Friday. We're done. I can't hear you, Neil.
Oh, was Neil talking?
He's trying to.
No. He didn't have me out. Yeah, so I'm very hungry now.
Okay, yeah. And you go hungry, I'm assuming, Steve. You have to. All right, let's talk about how it's run. And I had asked you that the breaks there are, in fact, timed to the commercials. So what happens procedurally when they cut to a commercial, or what happens with the director of the event itself?
So, these actors are all used to taking direction. So there's a director, a floor director, and all the regular characters, if you will, to run such a massive show like this. So at the very beginning, when we sit down, the pre-show starts at 3:30. So that's all the red carpet stuff.
And are you out there?
No. Okay. I quit going on the carpet years ago. It's a pain in the butt because you have to run back up, go back through security and all that other stuff. Then you miss the opening monologue and the opening show. So it was better for us if I just sit there in the room and get prepared and get ready. So the director comes on and you hear it in the audio. You don't see him, but you hear the audio instruction, and it goes out to the entire theater. It says, okay, everyone, welcome. Have a good time. Let's blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, and most importantly, don't F up. But he says it. That's hilarious. So the whole, everyone there's kind of a chuckle in the background. Then you hear the countdown, and then it starts. And then the opening little shtick with Jimmy Kimmel and Margot Robbie, and then it gets into where he comes out and does his monologue. And then when it goes to break, the breaks are in real time, it's live. So when that happens, then all of a sudden everyone gets up. They start shaking hands, and they start hugging, and they start seeing each other, and they go around, they get something to drink and whatever. Then there's a countdown clock that happens, or this is seen on the screens. We get it in the back, they get it out in the house. And so we're seeing the countdown clock, and then as it gets closer, the director comes back on and says, okay, everyone stand by, 1 minute, take your seats. And then that's how they do it, and it runs like that all night long.
And it's difficult to do new things because the Academy Awards and how much can you do with them? But there were some new approaches this year, weren't there? In terms of presenting, for example, the five. They had done that before. Oh, I had no idea. Amy and I were talking about that earlier. They did that years ago. I remember when they first did that, and they and Amy is funny because we were thinking the same thing. When they started doing that, I'm thinking, oh my God, please don't have this happen on every category because it'll be 7 hours long. But no, I think it's a really classy way of doing this. So it's past winners of the category, and they were in the acting category. So past winners come out there and they say something very supportive or very complimentary about the nominees. And then one of the people that are up on stage will read the winner. So I think it's a great personal connection, and it's something that no one saw coming. A lot of what you see on stage, the people in the audience don't know what's happening. Even the most anticipated scene of the evening with Ryan Gosling singing, everyone knew he was going to be singing something, but they had no idea how it was going to happen, where he was going to be. And then you got Slash that came in from Guns N' Roses. You had Wolfgang Van Halen come in. I mean, they were performing. And, I mean, they were doing things, and that's one of the things producers like to do with this show is always throw some surprises in there, including surprises for the audience. All right. Giving it a grade, Steve, having been to 22 of these live events, and I know some of them are just horrible, how would you grade this Academy Awards ceremony? I don't like to do that because I don't like to put myself out there. Okay. But, all right. So let me ask this. Let me spin it another way. The buzz that you hear. You hear a lot of buzz. I saw a lot of criticism of Kimmel's performance because he did a lot of what was considered offensive stuff last night. I saw a lot of that trending, and then I thought the show overall was kind of flat. It was, it's hard to top the slap scene around the world, and after that happened, and that kind of shook the whole process up. It was kind of flat overall. I thought. I mean, there's a lot. I always say every year, there's a lot that can be done to cut that thing down to 2 hours or to the length of a Christopher Nolan movie, if you will. Yeah, one of the things I noticed now they have 10 Best Picture awards. Then it was Al Pacino didn't even go through the names of the 10. Well, no, because they rolled those in during the night. That's how they have to get around having so many nominees. They roll in a quick clip of the nominee of the night. So that's why they do that. Coming back from the commercials, they'll roll that clip in so that you don't have to go through all of those at the end of the evening. And even with that, Pacino screwed it up. Did you see that? No. Yeah, I didn't notice that he screwed it up. Yeah, he did because he opened the envelope. And that's right. He opened the envelope. Yeah. I see Oppenheimer. Yeah. It's like, what? And then it's like, wait a minute. It was almost a La La Land moment. Yeah, I thought that was purposeful, but I guess not. He didn't really know what he was reading. So. And then, of course, the outfits that people wear just completely insane. Those women spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And I guess the excitement level among them is this is the biggest thing that happens every year, and the biggest thing that happens in their lifetime. Yeah, A, they don't pay for those dresses, and B, I can't believe those who do spend that much money to not.
We're not bad. I mean, how are you?
Yeah, and they still get the swag bags.
Oh yeah, they're worth about 300. Was it $300,000 this time, each one of them?
That's
I
incredible.
think it was about $300,000.
And what's in it? We only have a minute.
Yeah, so it's a lot of wellness stuff, a lot of getaways, and that's why some of the prices go up, because it's like, free airfare, business class or first class airfare, and then all resorts, an all-inclusive resort kind of stuff. So a lot of that jewelry, high-end jewelry, stuff like that. So that's why the price tag goes up pretty high. But because they don't get paid, presenters and nominees don't get paid to attend, and that's why they get those.
No, does the Academy pay for those, or those?
It's all donated. It's all donated because it's training.
What do these companies get for that?
They get a celebrity using their product, whereas they may have never gotten that product in front of the celebrity's eyes. It's absolutely it's been a very lucrative business model to give them. It's the same reason we do trade around here.
Yeah, but it's trade for us is, we'll mention a pizza joint.
Yeah, that's high end for us. Yeah, that pizza joint got how much exposure for?
That's true. All right, so once again, let me put it on the table. Neil, you and I, any restaurant or any pizza place that's willing to donate pizzas to the show on any given morning, get a free plug. And Killian Murphy will mention that pizza place. Let him know that, okay?
Yeah, nothing like pizza at 6 a.m. in the morning.
It doesn't matter. I'm fine with that. Doesn't matter. Pizza's like sex. As bad as it is, it's always pretty good.
How would you know?
Because I eat a lot of pizza. All right, Steve. Thank you.
Take care, pal.
All right. Coming up, they have a case with Wayne, and that's how we'll end the show on this Monday morning. Let's check in with Amy live in the KFI 24-hour newsroom.
The story of atomic bomb mastermind J. Robert Oppenheimer has taken home 7 Academy Awards from the Dolby Theater. It won for Best Picture, Best Director for Christopher Nolan, and Best Acting Awards for Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. It was the first Oscar win for Nolan, Murphy, and Downey. The film also won Best Cinematography, Film Editing, and Best Score.
Not many controversies at this year's Oscars. I'm Steve Gregory. Despite 2 high-profile awards happening overseas, Oscar winners didn't spend much time talking about it. Jonathan Glazer won for Best International Film, The Zone of Interest. He said they finished the film about the Holocaust just as the war in Gaza began.
Right now we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Whether the victims of October...
Valerie, can you hear me?
...to support a ceasefire in Gaza. Steve Gregory, KFI News.
News brought to you by Cunning Dental. Officials in El Monte say the city's guaranteed income pilot program has been successful.
125 single female heads of household have received $500 per month since July to mitigate the economic strain caused by COVID-19. The RAND Corporation and USC Soul Price School of Public Policy studied the family's progress over the last 8 months. Preliminary findings released last week show reduced stress, anxiety, and economic strain, plus improved housing stability. Participants reported spending the money on food, rent, gas, and school supplies. The final payments go out in May. Corbin Carson, KFI News.
Of course, Japan, friend of Egypt, and I say this with a lot of pride.
The Egyptian Minister of International Cooperation thanked Japan for signing an agreement with the World Health Organization to send aid to hospitals in Egypt that are treating Palestinians. Japan said yesterday it will send $8 million worth of critical emergency medical equipment and supplies to help people hurt in the Gaza Strip. Egypt has been receiving severely ill and injured Palestinians for treatment since November after the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Princess Kate has apologized for a family photo released by the palace.
Princess Kate saying, like many amateur photographers, I do occasionally experiment with editing, and she offered apologies for any confusion.
ABC's Derek Dennis says the photo of Kate and her children was the first one released since she had abdominal surgery in January and was to celebrate Mother's Day in Britain.
But sharp-eyed royal watchers noticed Kate was not wearing her wedding ring, and one of Charlotte's sleeves appeared to be disjointed from her wrist.
Major news outlets retracted publication of the photo. Southland weather from KFI, sunny after some areas of low clouds, highs in the low to mid-60s at the beaches, Metro LA and Inland OC, low to mid-60s for the valleys and Inland Empire, 50s with some gusty winds in the Antelope Valley. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with highs in the 60s. Partly cloudy Wednesday with highs in the 60s to about 70. Warming into the mid-70s Thursday and Friday. It's 52 in Dana Point, 50 in Rancho Santa Margarita. Let's check in with the KFI in the sky. Looking at a crash in Rialto on the 210.
Yeah, this one's been with us for a couple of hours. 210 westbound right before Pepper. Crash, well, it's being investigated there, and it's slow all the way back from State Street on that stretch of the highway. The home pass looks a lot better than it did.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco from Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's kazoo concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's bachelorette bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting. Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Astonishing Legends is supported by ZipRecruiter, Squarespace, The Great Courses Plus, and Harrys.com.
And we're back. Well, this one's been a long time coming. I think it's fair to say that the Mothman and the Count of Saint Germain were the two guys I was most interested in when we were first concepting the show.
We'll save the Count for another day, but tonight we tackle one of the most infamous legends in modern North America, the Mothman. Happy Halloween.
50% on term life insurance. For your free quote, go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote.com. That's SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop.
Welcome back to Astonishing Legends. I'm Scott Philbrook, and this is Forrest Burgess.
Human beings are under the control of a strange force that bends them in absurd ways, forcing them to play a role in the bizarre game of deception. Jacques Vallée, computer scientist, venture capitalist, and ufologist.
Join us tonight as we dive into the astonishing legend of the Mothman. So the story is too big for a single episode. We're going to break it into a few parts. And oddly, it has a lot more in common with Skinwalker Ranch than I originally thought of when I read the book, Mothman Prophecies, a long time ago. I read it years and years ago before we started the show.
I think you're going to find a lot of that happening as we go forward in our journey with us and the audience, Scott.
Yeah, there's more common threads than I ever expected. When we started out, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, this has always been a big one for us, and a good one to do at Halloween.
Yes, it's a perfect time of year for it, and it's not quite as everything in the kitchen sink as Skinwalker was, but there's some striking parallels, and I think you guys are going to hear them as well if you've been listening to all our shows.
There's plenty of sink.
Yeah, there's plenty of sink.
Not quite as wide-ranging as Skinwalker, but you're right. As now we're fond of saying here, a confluence of phenomena happening here.
If you've gotten your information about this story from the movie, The Mothman Prophecies, which I love, is a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I know we have listeners who have already expressed differing opinions about it. Some people are upset that it doesn't convey everything that happened, but when you make a movie, that's what you have to do.
Yes.
And it did a great job of making it into a good bit of entertainment, but it also left a lot of the real story out, which is, as I just said, you can't do everything. You can't put everything in a movie. Yeah, exactly. The reality of everything that happened in Point Pleasant is that it doesn't all follow a suitable entertainment narrative. So, like a lot of folklore, the bits that don't fit into the structure get left out when the tale is told over and over in that environment. But what we do here at Astonishing Legends is we try to bring all the details back into the light, because that's the reality of the legend. And the beauty of the podcast format is that it's well suited for that. Now, if you've seen the movie, which came out in 2002 with Richard Gere, that's great. Forrest and I have both seen it several times, but if you haven't and you prefer to hear the real story first, we would encourage you not to watch the film until our series is concluded. It'll be a lot more fun that way, and you'll know the true story that was the background for the film adaptation. And like I said, I read the book a long time ago. I can't remember when, but it originally was published in 1975, which I didn't know. I thought it came out much later. Oh, yeah, the second or third edition that came out later. I just procured, which I Instagrammed and tweeted yesterday. I don't even know if you saw it yet, Forrest, but I did. Hardcover 1975 edition's on its way.
You know, it's very cool. And the author, the great John Keel, a big name in this field, along with Brad Steiger, and actually they're longtime friends. They've been doing it a long time. So at this time, he was in an advanced age.
Yes.
But during this time, he was in his prime here, out digging up the facts.
Yes, when the story happened in the late 60s, he was a younger man. Astonishing Legends, as it is now, doesn't really afford us, much to our disdain,
we'd love to.
The ability to travel to all the places we talk about. That is something that we'd love to do. And if the show continues to be successful and grow like it's been growing, maybe someday we'll be able to actually go to these places and report on them locally. Some I would love to do. So go to Legend Trail.
I think you did go there to
Well, that's
one of the locations we'll be talking about, didn't you?
Yeah, that's why I brought this up. I'm excited to say that I've been to Point Pleasant. I stayed at Point Pleasant, and it was pleasant. It was, and I loved it. It's a great little town. I mean, I was born here near Death Valley in California, but I only lived there until I was about 2. My experience of growing up was in North Carolina, and small towns were a part of the fabric of my background. And I love small towns, especially in the South.
You're essentially OB from Mayberry.
Yes, that's me.
Now you'd be a very successful film director.
Yes, yeah. My hairline's not quite as bad.
No, but I know exactly what you're saying. It's a kind of suburban / somewhat rural upbringing, and it's much different than somebody growing up in a major city. You know, a lot more freedoms, a lot more time to check things out, the environment around you.
I loved it, and I loved Point Pleasant. I went there. My friend Jerry, who you may actually our audience will know because he's the one I interviewed for What's Gotten Into You, which is one of the favorite episodes of people about.
It's a creepy crawly one.
Yeah, the bug that went is here. Anyway, Jerry was moving from California to New York, where my wife and I had just moved a year earlier. So I flew across the country and we drove back together. I rode with him, so we did one of those kind of non-stop trips. We packed up a U-Haul van and put a mattress in a way where there was like just a gap where someone could lay down so that you could drive and sleep without having to stop. We covered the distance pretty quick, but we did stop in Point Pleasant. And we stayed there at the historic Low Hotel.
It's in the movie.
Yes, it is. And it's an awesome, creepy old hotel, which we just added a member to the Stashing Research Corps who was a resident of Point Pleasant. His name is Michael Hyman. And he told me that either his grandparents or his great-grandparents actually used to own that hotel. But it was sold to a friend of the family. That was fascinating to me. But anyway, when we stayed there, it was definitely a spooky place. I don't know if it's supposed to be haunted. I didn't experience anything like that. But we went around and checked out the area and went down on the river shore. There's a flood wall there. An old flood wall that's kind of cool that they had a door that could close up if the river came up because it's pretty close down to the water line.
Did you see anything strange in the skies?
No. Okay. And these days it's pretty quiet. We'll talk more about that. I don't think there's a lot going on, or if there is, they're not talking about it.
They weren't talking about it then either, but what makes this story significant is that we always try to impress on people that, yes, we're telling you a lot of these things have happened, and there's always a general sense to believe that, well, this place is a hotbed of activity, and that might be true, but these things are also very, very rare.
Yes.
In an individual's life, something strange that you might see or an encounter that you can't explain might happen once or twice in your life.
Right, and events are spread out. You get the sense when you hear the stories later that they're all compressed, much like it was with Skinwalker or whatever, but the truth is these things take place over a long period of time. Now, in this case,
yes, on the other hand,
in this case, everything that happened in about 13 months. Right, the bulk of it, although there are loosely connected events bookending it that go further back. Oh, I saw this, I saw that, but the bulk of what most people attribute to us to being related to what has made this story famous took place over a period of about 13 months.
But I think the number of incidents and accounts and witnesses,
over
100 documented witnesses and accounts, that alone makes it very significant.
Indeed.
Which is why so many people pay attention to the story and have come to love it.
And as big as the story is here in North America, especially after the movie, which starred Richard Gere and Laura Linney, we know we have international listeners and folks who aren't familiar with it. So before we dive into it deeply, we want to give a brief overview of the story. In November of 1966, people living in the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which we were just talking about, and its neighboring communities along the mighty Ohio River, began to see something extremely strange haunting the area. There were so many eyewitnesses that it's hard to say what the first official sighting was, but one of the ones most often referred to as kind of the starting point was a sighting by a National Guardsman on duty at the Point Pleasant 1092nd Engineer Battalion headquarters. He was on the base when he saw an impossibly large creature perched high in a tree above a fence bordering the base. It was so big, he thought it was a man, and he stood and he stared at it for quite some time. He couldn't make sense of it. So he's like, it must be a bird, but it's too big. It was the largest bird he'd ever seen in his life. He went to get someone else to come back and take a look at it, and when he returned, it was gone. So, this event on its own, you probably wouldn't even tell this as a story. You would chalk it up to misinterpretation and whatever. This guy himself didn't come forward with it until he started to hear more stories.
Yeah, at this point, it's not enough for yourself and probably for other people to hear. So I
saw it, but my mind must have been playing tricks on me. Whatever.
I know tons of stories like that, and I have several friends that happened to, where it's kind of, first of all, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then later on, okay, that's beyond weird.
You can really easily convince yourself in a one-off kind of instance like that you were mistaken.
Right.
Especially in this day and age. It's kind of like, so funny. My wife and I watch TV, we watch a lot of crime shows. And whenever they come on and somebody explains luminol and what luminol does, it's like we're at the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's like, we know what luminol does. It's just, that's the same thing I would say about how people understand the value of eyewitness testimony, even if it's your own eyewitness account. In this day and age, everyone knows that it's not always the most reliable thing. So you have to take any kind of eyewitness testimony with a grain of salt versus when you see something on video, it's like, no, that's what I'm seeing. However, the problem with video is that the moment, whatever you're seeing, is out of context. You have no idea what happened before or after it. So it has its own deficiencies. But the National Guardsman, he probably would have never come forward had more and more cases not been coming out.
Right. It reminds me of another military sighting. And forgive me for talking off the cuff here, but I believe it was Napoleon's nephew or something, some kind of relation, that saw the Jersey Devil fly near the post there with other people as well, and took a shot at it. It turned in the air. I remember this part. It's flying. It's this weird crypto creature flying in the air. He shot at it. It kind of did a roll in the air, kept on flying, and went away. But he wasn't the only one, so other people saw it. This is not the only time that this apparently has happened. Apparently throughout the ages.
Yeah.
Again, like the skinwalker, this might go back centuries.
Right. Millennia. And when you talk about this, and you talk about cryptozoology, which is firmly labeled a pseudoscience, frankly, by Wikipedia anyway.
Oh, well,
I know, but I love cryptozoology, which is the study or the hunt for unknown animals.
There is discovering all the time, by the way.
That's right.
The googly-eyed squid.
Yeah.
Nobody knew about him. This little cute purple face there.
Right, so when you first see it, it's cryptozoological. And eventually you can apply the scientific method to it and put it into a species and a genus and all that. And it's like, okay, now it's science, but whatever. The point is that people see things that they can't explain. And yes, sometimes the chupacabra, I think, probably is a dog with mange, sure, or whatever else. But there are other cases where people see things they can't explain, and that is the story where this giant human-sized bird that the National Guardsman saw. However, this story takes a whole other turn, almost right out of the gate, because the very next day after the National Guardsman saw this thing in the tree, a traveling sewing machine salesman named Woody Dernberger had an encounter with an extremely strange man outside of Parkersburg, West Virginia, which is just north of Point Pleasant along the Ohio River. This man was not a Mothman at all, but he was humanoid, and he called himself Edgar Cold. His demeanor was extremely disturbing to Dernberger, to say the least. Although these two encounters are not necessarily the very first ones in this chain of bizarre events, they are as good a place to kick off the story of the Mothman as any. And so tonight, we're going to begin with Dernberger's encounter with Cold, a man who described himself, if he was a man, as a searcher.
Hey Scott, have you ever tried searching for the perfect job candidate?
Absolutely. For every gig, there's only a handful of people that are right for it, but finding them can be a job in itself.
I know exactly what you mean. In fact, with my current project, I had to call and email nearly 100 candidates trying to find people with the right qualifications and experience. Well, that was before we got hooked up with ZipRecruiter.com. Instead of calling 100 people, I could have posted to 100 plus job sites with just a single click, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter. It's also a great solution if you're looking for a job. You can easily post your resume on ZipRecruiter.com and get a notification anytime someone checks you out.
As an employer, you can find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch qualified candidates' resumes stream into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard interface. The other problem with the old way is that you're then having to deal with a flood of inquiries. ZipRecruiter lets you quickly screen and organize job seekers to find the right person for the job, and fast.
Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 1 million businesses.
And right now, our listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/legends.
That's ZipRecruiter.com/legends. One more time, to try it for free, go to ZipRecruiter.com/legends.
And now back to Astonishing Legends with Scott Philbrook and Forrest Burgess.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about Woodrow Durenberger. I thought it was Durenberger, but I did hear, I think in the interview that we're going to have some excerpts from tonight, I heard it pronounced Durenberger.
It's spelled like it's Durenberger.
It is spelled Durenberger, but I think it's Durenberger. Either way, we're going to call him Woody.
I think it's appropriate.
So this story takes place on November 2nd, outside of Parkersburg, West Virginia, where Woody Durenberger, who was a resident of Mineral Wells, West Virginia, which is about 55 miles northeast of Point Pleasant. He's a traveling salesman. He sold sewing machines.
Yeah, he had a service van that he drove.
Yeah,
machines not only to sell but to support his sales.
Exactly.
And he was coming back from Marietta, Ohio, right?
Yes, driving south on I-77, just outside of Parkersburg, West Virginia, where 77 and Route 47, also known today anyway as Staunton Avenue, intersect. And this was in 1966. I want to point out something that Keel said in his book. We're going to be referring to John Keel's book, About Hypotheses, a lot during this series. One of the things that he said was that the interchange there, and I think I-77 was relatively new at the time. And he even made some implications about it being an intersection for quite some time, and he sort of delved into a few references about ley lines, which people have mixed feelings about.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That comes up again when we get down to the name of the character that Woody ran into, and I'll get back to that here in a second. But right now, whenever we do one of these shows, when something happens somewhere, I'm immediately on Google Earth. I've gone down to like Street View, and I'm there, I'm like, I'm there. Well, I love, since we can't afford to actually go,
we can't afford it. You know, where that really came in handy was the Somerton ad. You could see the intersection there.
Yeah.
And of course, it's all changed. There's an apartment building there. But when there's a definite location of something happening, especially in the intersection or crossroads, that's still there, well, you can find it.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. So I know that Marietta, Ohio, you have to realize it's kind of on the border. He's only about 13 miles away from Parkersburg.
Right.
But he's heading home. He's had a full day of work. He's coming back.
Anyway, this is right next to another river, the Little Kanawha River.
Is it Kanawha?
Well, I don't know. I did that YouTube thing where the lady said it.
I don't trust her. She's a robot.
Yeah, you're right. Can't trust her. They're taking our jobs. Anyway, the little river that we said is second rail, which is a tributary of the Ohio. Anyway, so Woody's driving down the road, and his panel van, his sewing machine panel van, and a car passes him. Goes flying by him as he's heading south towards Route 47. And this car is being trailed by a low flying very closely. Yes, a UFO is about 30 feet behind it, and the UFO itself is 35 feet long and maybe 9 feet wide. And it's floating and chasing this car that went by. So first of all, I'd like to know where that person is.
Well, I've often thought about this. Were they in some kind of cahoots?
Yeah,
because it was the opposite of what you see in Close Encounters, where the cop cars are chasing the ice cream cone there.
Yeah.
But it's a similar idea. The car zips past, and I can't remember from the interview if he described it as a black sedan, because then I started thinking,
yeah, I'm not sure what that is. By the way, the interview we're going to be playing excerpts from, we have a link to in the show notes. You can listen to it in its entirety, audio. It was a television interview, it's audio only, and it's about 30 minutes, and it's fascinating, it's fun, and interesting to listen to. So
yes, and it's always been my just internal interpretation here that somehow those two vehicles were connected. As Woody describes it, it's much like a chimney on an old-fashioned kerosene lamp.
Right.
Just with raft, right? And so it's kind of a weirdly shaped tube with flares at the end, bulging in the middle.
Yeah.
It's kind of end-to-end, so it's lengthwise, going down the highway, chasing or following, yes, in tandem, this car that zips past.
Right.
Now, what happens once it gets past?
As soon as it gets past him, it goes up in the road in front of him, and it turns sideways and settles down low enough, and it does not touch the ground, but low enough that there's no way he can go around it. In fact, he tried to go around it. He had pulled off into the grass a little bit, but there was just no way. And he also indicated that it did not come to an abrupt stop. He didn't have to lock up his brakes or anything.
No,
it actually sort of slowed gradually. It gave him an opportunity to slow down.
It meant to kind of get in front of him, slow him down safely, gently.
Yes,
stop, because it had some business with Woody. When I started thinking about the shape, you'll see pictures, of course, an artist depiction of that.
And Chad's working on something too, which by the time the show goes up, you will see.
Yeah,
you will have already seen it.
For you that have not checked it out, that are listening to the audio first, it kind of reminds me, you ever seen those foot roller massagers that are usually wood, they're knobby kind of things, and you put them on the floor, and I think you can roll the sole of your foot over.
Yeah.
Or kind of a more fatter looking dumbbell. Right, a small and weight. Yeah, very light. So that's kind of what you have to picture here, and that's what Woody's talking about. Like, what he means by the chimney on a kerosene lantern is that you have the boulder shape of the lantern, and then, of course, the smoke has to get out the top somehow. So there's kind of a tubular attachment to the top that's on a spring, and it kind of flares out at the end. So imagine two of those on the opposite ends of this bulging kind of a tube. Yeah, that's kind of what he's describing here. Yeah. I feel bad about this tangent, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. It looks a little bit like a kelp bulb. Oh, yeah. I don't know why that popped in my head. No, I think it's if you've ever had kelp wrap itself around your leg on the where you're sitting when you're swimming and talk about, frightening around. But yeah, those little bulbs, it kind of looks like that. It's just one of the many thousands of shapes described as unidentified flying objects. And this one's kind of important because it's a little odd. It's not your usual saucer shape or not even your standard cigar shape. Right, there's some of the more common ones. And not even close to the black flying triangle yet. Right. It stops in the road in front of it, and a door opens. Now, I want to be clear about this. This door, I wanted it to be a Star Trek door, or I wanted it to matter to appear. Apparently, it had a good old-fashioned hinge on it. Yeah, it swung open, and a character, a gentleman, stepped out of it onto the ground. Now, I believe that Woody said it was floating 6 to 8 inches above the ground. 6 to 8 inches above the ground with no visible landing gear or anything like that. And just to paint the scene here, so this thing has turned on its side, covering, blocking the whole road, the side of the road. He has pulled over so that 2 sets of wheels are on the dirt berm next to the highway. The other 2 are actually on the pavement. Yeah. His lights are on. His headlights are shining directly onto this crowd. Yes. So he has a very good view. It's very well illuminated. It had been raining earlier. It had stopped at this point. It was just sprinkling. So the conditions were wet, but he can clearly see this thing. Right. So the door opens. Swings out. Actually, it was the hinge on the bottom. No, it was on the side, I think, like a car door. You can't see the hinge. It's not like poor workmanship. He describes it as a very, aside from the fact that it's floating in air, he describes it sort of very terrestrial. Yeah, no, with this door. It makes a sound like a car door. He described it. Yeah, and he said it sounded like a car door. Actually, later when it closed, it's real. And this is a thought. This comes back to a whole thing, which is going to be an ongoing theme in this series, of kind of an overly terrestrial nature to these seemingly non-terrestrial craft. Some of them, yeah. That's the one thing, though, Scott, that carries throughout all of ufology. There's every combination, varied description that you can imagine. It's like the famous woodcutting, right, with all the things in the sky that everyone said they saw. Yes, you're talking about the battle over Nuremberg. Yeah. That's a different thing. That's got a lot of shapes. I love those shapes. When I was a kid, I was like, wow. That was also documented. Tons of townsfolk had seen it. It was, I don't know, early in the morning, a little after 6 a.m., but the sun had already started cresting. And so it wasn't just one person, but now you're talking about a medieval description of very strange happenings. Yes. This is not that. We have a very sober individual who seems clear-minded and not crazy, telling a very peculiar story. So this guy comes out of the crowd, he's walking towards the car. And he apparently is walking across Woody's headlights over to the side of the car that's safely on the side of the highway. The right side of the highway. And you wonder about this. Why is it coming to the driver's side? Well, there's traffic. Exactly. He's following standard police procedure here. You don't approach on the side that puts you out in the middle of the road. You approach on the safe side, which is often the other reason they park their cars at an angle. So that if another car hits it, it glances off. But anyway, to keep people from hitting them. Well, because people are stupid. There's a weird psychological phenomenon that I think especially people who are inebriated or intoxicated just gradually drift. It's like a moth to the flame kind of thing that will burn them, and they drift over. They can't kind of help it. They're attracted to it, and they smash it in the back of the Department of Transportation works vehicle. That's why they have this giant scorpion tail on for impacts. But this is all kind of planned. It's very smoothly done by this individual, and his whole deployment is very smooth. Well, and here's the thing, though, that Woody talks about. As he's approaching the car, Woody hears him ask him to roll his window down on his passenger side of his truck. This is fascinating. The interviewer specifically asked him at what point he got this question, and Woody said as he was walking towards the car. And what happened was Woody was hearing these messages from the guy who was getting out of the craft in his head.
Which he didn't know it. No, he wasn't aware of it. He was so in shock about the whole event. He wasn't frightened. He made it very clear that he was scared.
He thought it was, of course, just a car in a truck passing close out of the corner of his eye. Then he gets a good glance at this thing. Imagine it, it's all happening kind of quickly. Thing turns on the side, that's weird. A guy steps out of this weird shaped object. So after he got out of the craft, the door closes. The vehicle shoots straight up into the air. Now, Woody can still see it. He says he kind of leaned forward. You can see it at the top of his windshield. So it's still in the sky,
like 50 or 75 feet hovering, right. But now passing cars are not going to see anything.
And that's another interesting thing. Cars are now, and trucks are passing as regular traffic on the highway. Not very crowded, but every once in a while. And as they pass, their headlights are on, and they illuminate this individual. Yes. So, to Woody's mind, like, this thing's real. He's a real guy. He looks totally normal. But, yes, he gets this request from his gentleman to roll the window down. Please roll your window down. I would like to speak with you.
Right. He leans over, he rolls the window. This is pre-power windows unless you had a Cadillac or a Continental.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, so he's reaching over and cranking that window.
And the guy says, I would like to speak with you for a moment. And I think that is when Woody realizes that this guy's talking to me, but he's not moving his mouth, right? Which then greatly excites him into a mild panic, because what is going on here?
At which point the man says to him mentally, don't be frightened. We mean you no harm. We wish you all the happiness. Woody says the man then told him that his name was Cole. Did not say his first name, he just said Cole. In this encounter, he never said a first name. It's just something I think a lot of people do. Yes. He just said his name was Cole. He had a giant grin. He was grinning. He had his arms folded. He was wearing, you can probably describe his wardrobe.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Woody Woodrow here is describing this incident to Ronald Maines, who's the general manager of WTAP TV and radio out of Parkersburg, which is still there, as a station. And this is the next day, so this is very, very fresh in his mind. He's very straightforward. He's not shaky. He's not flamboyant in his descriptions. He's very dead on. You all have a relative, I'm sure, like him. He's stoic, right? Yeah, but friendly and open, and it's kind of brave of him to be telling us, because you're going to get ridiculed. Of course, hands down. There's no way you could not know that. It's a small town, one of those places that everybody knows everyone else, and he knows that. But I think it was so compelling that he had to tell him. So he contacted somebody. And so the next day, November 3rd, they arranged an interview. So Mr. Derenberger alleges that the contact happened November 2nd, 1966, about 7:25 p.m. These details are very fresh in his mind, but he describes this gentleman named Cole. He didn't ask Woody his name. He did it in a very odd way. He said, "What are you called? What are you called?" So Woody interpreted this like, "Oh, you mean what's my name?" So I said, "Well, it's Woodrow Derenberger." And he said, "I am called Cole." So that was a little odd. So as this is unfolding, kind of piecing this together, and he's looking at the man and noticing what he's dressed in. It's pretty normal. He said, like what you would wear going into town. He's wearing a dark top coat. Yeah, that's an overcoat. It's a weather coat to be worn over your suit. So normally you just wouldn't, be bare-chested or have a t-shirt on underneath that. Yes, it's zippered in the front. He said there was kind of like two top buttons. Those were undone, so you can kind of see what's on underneath. And he said the top coat was very dark. Maybe, I believe, Ronald Maines, the general manager there, asked him, he said, like, it was kind of dark navy.
And the names of the 25 employees at the Washington plant who worked on those boats, telling the Senate Commerce Committee last week Boeing has yet to comply.
She says the Justice Department was already investigating Boeing over 2 deadly 737 MAX crashes. Ramadan has begun with no ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, despite U.S.-led negotiations. The U.S. and Israeli officials are blaming Hamas, saying the terror group hardened its position.
But U.S. efforts to reach a deal are continuing. A 6-week ceasefire would see 40 of the 132 hostages freed.
ABC's Jordana Miller says a ceasefire would also dramatically boost land deliveries of humanitarian aid during the Muslim Holy Month. President Biden says he regrets using the word illegal to describe a man charged with killing a 22-year-old nursing student in Georgia. Biden says he should have said undocumented person. The man from Venezuela, who is in the country illegally, is charged with murdering Lake and Riley last month. Former President Trump met Riley's parents before a rally in Georgia on Saturday. He mocked Biden for his apology. Trump's campaign says Biden should be apologizing to Riley's family. A new study by the Pentagon has examined reported UFO sightings from over the last 7 decades.
The Defense Department's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office found no evidence of aliens or extraterrestrial intelligence. The study analyzed U.S. government investigations since 1945 of reported sightings of unidentified anomalous phenomena, more popularly known as UFOs. It found no evidence that any of those claims were actually signs of alien life, or that the U.S. government and private companies had reverse-engineered extraterrestrial technology and were hiding it. Sandy Wells, KFI News.
And Denver City Council is considering a proposal to remove sugary drinks from kids' meals. Lucky Pie General Manager Sarah Brown says her restaurant is ahead of the game.
We changed our kids' menus last fall to take off the sodas.
But Brown says most families are still drinking soda. If the measure is approved, kid combo meals across the city would only offer 2 choices, milk or water. Southland weather from KFI, some low clouds, clearing to sunny skies. Highs in the low 60s at the beaches, mid-60s for Metro LA and Inland OC, low to mid-60s in the valleys and Inland Empire, 50s in the high desert. Some areas of drizzle overnight in the IE, otherwise just mostly cloudy. We're going to see mostly cloudy skies tomorrow with highs in the mid-60s, warming to about 70 on Wednesday. Mid-70s with sunny skies Thursday through the weekend. It's 50 in Diamond Bar, 54 in Newport Beach, 48 in Palmdale, 53 in Whittier. The KFI Market Report brought to you by Revive Real Estate. The Dow is down 61 points. The NASDAQ is trading down 34, and the S&P 500 is off 11.
Revive Real Estate will buy your home, then renovate it, then sell it, and pay you again for the additional profit from the renovation. Go to KFIRevive.com to see if your home qualifies.
Checking in with the KFI in the sky. We've got a crash in East LA on the 5.
We just watched it get clear. It's the northbound side of the 5, just past Calzona. But the damage is done. It's slow all the way back from the 605, resulting from that earlier crash. Northbound side of the 110, actually southbound too, between the 105 and the 10. Pretty ugly, especially the northbound side. Don't forget, we have major closures in the canyons today. The PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, is shut down between Big Rock and Las Posas. Also, the Topanga Canyon itself is shut down, basically from the top of the pass all the way down to Pacific Coast Highway. Westbound side of the 10, it is terrible from Western as you make your way on out to, all the way to the 10, or 405. Will Coltrane, KFI in the sky.
You'll never know until you experience it here yourself. It's that feeling when you're at Disneyland Resort, and there's no better time than now. Visit Disneyland.com for important details. Flight admission reservation required for park entry. Inner peace. For me, it's the aroma of lavender and candlelit bath enveloped by a rainforest soundscape. Enlightenment, here I come.
Free one-day delivery on bath bombs and millions of other items. Whatever you're into, it's on Prime.
KLA Dodger fans, step up to the plate for the Spectrum Season Ticket Sweepstakes. Visit a participating Spectrum store and enter for a chance to win our grand prize, a pair of Los Angeles Dodgers season tickets. Plus, hundreds of bonus winners can win a 50-inch smart TV. Hustle, sweepstakes ends March 17th. For more information and official rules, go to spectrum.com/2024-SWEEPS-LA. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 18 plus in California. Odds of winning vary by location. Void where prohibited.
Every March, Jersey Mike's turns money from subs into charitable donations.
And March 27th is Jersey Mike's annual day of giving, where 100% of sales from every sub are given back to the community.
And to kick off all that giving, Peter gave me an apron. I'm honored.
Looking good, Danny. We've got subs to make, though.
Yeah, now I know why you gave me the apron. Join us Wednesday, March 27th for Jersey Mike's Day of Giving. Be a sub above.
College hoops fans, it's tournament time. The thrill and excitement of March Mania is here, and you can get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps. New customers bet on any college basketball national tournament game and turn $5 into $150 instantly in bonus bets. That's right. To celebrate college basketball's most frenzied time of the year, DraftKings is giving new customers a shot to rack up some bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use promo code iHeart. New customers can bet $5 to get $150 instantly in bonus bets only with DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code iHeart. That's promo code iHeart. 168 hours after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.DraftKings.com.
So imagine that's kind of the color, just a very dark, very dark bluish color. Woody said it was glistening, it was shiny, almost metallic looking, and that as the cars drove by, it glistened and kind of shined in the headlights. So he said, yeah, very shiny material, very unusual for the time, what Woody's wife would call a heavy material or a heavy fabric. And underneath, he said he had kind of a regular shirt, no tie, but the shirt was a little darker than the coat. And then he had regular trousers on, and those were a little lighter than the coat, but also kind of that same color, kind of a darkish, bluish hue. But at least with the trousers, he said it looked to be made out of the same material, that kind of metallic looking, very futuristic. Yeah, every spacesuit you see in the 50s, they're wearing usually it's a silver suit of some kind. But earlier I thought it was kind of maybe a flight suit, but it wasn't. So just kind of normal clothes, but yeah, no tubes on this one. No tubes, no bubble helmets. Yeah, no breathing apparatus. He looks pretty normal, as we described him. Thick head of hair, dark brown, slick back kind of, but a little longish. And he said he had a deep tan, nothing unusual, not like a spray can formulation, but that maybe he'd been outdoors and working or something. He looked like he was just heavily tan. That's kind of the physical description. Maybe it was trauma. I think he would have said orange. Right. If that were the case, and maybe some kind of dead squirrel in his head. Right. It's nothing visually that's too upsetting, other than he came out of a big metal tube, which was, he described it as charcoal colored. Yes. Maybe kind of dull, not real shiny, but yeah, kind of dark gray, very charcoal as he described it. So other than that, the guy looks pretty normal, and he said that his persona was very friendly, like he was very trying to be calm, but again, to an average human, anything happening in that appearance, that normally doesn't happen. So he was trying to keep, Woody got the impression he was trying to keep him calm as well, him at ease. And twice, Woody said, twice Cole asked him, you can either communicate with me by thinking, or you can just talk to me. Yeah, whatever is more comfortable for you. Woody's saying, of course, Woody's not used to mental telepathy with strangers, or kind of a strange clairvoyance, so that alone is upsetting. Well, he doesn't know. He's like, I'm giving you the choice. Well, and that brings me to one of my favorite things that Woody said in the interview. He said that Cole then asked him what the city was in the distance, because they were right outside of Parkersburg. He says he indicated this by pointing, well, actually, here, let's just play Woody's answer.
I told him my name, and when I told him my name, he said he was called Cole. That was the name he was called by. And he asked me what the city Parkersburg, he pointed to the lights, he didn't point, but he gave the impression he was pointing, and he asked me what that was called. And I told him it was Parkersburg, it was a city, a town. And he asked me if most all the people lived in this city or town. And I explained to him that it was a place of business. It's where we transacted our business. That the people lived in communities, outlying communities, most of the people. And when I told him that this was a city, he said that where his home was, that was called a gathering.
Right, okay, so my favorite part of that is when Woody says, he didn't point, he gave the impression he was pointing. I love that, he gave the impression he was pointing. So all of his communication is coming through into his mind. He gave the impression he was pointing. Well, he's standing there with his hands under his armpits. Right. He's standing there with his hands under his armpits. I think, not that he had weird reptilian claw hands, or dog hands. They're dog hands. And no, actually, Woody said that later when he went back to the craft, an arm reached out and helped pull him into the craft. And he saw that arm and that hand, and he said it looked completely human. Yeah, they're completely normal. And the door closed with a car door kind of a car door. Yeah. So we got a flying lantern chimney that has car door sounds. But a solid American car door. What's interesting here is that you can tell by the body language, I think, with the hands under the armpits as non-aggressive. Yeah. You see people do that, especially when their hands are cold. They got basically their hands tucked under their armpits, so arms folded. And it's kind of like, I'm not casual. I'm not trying to reach out to you. But it lends itself, though, to the whole idea that these visitors, and there's going to be more of them in this story, don't exactly know how to look natural, or how to behave normally. Their body language is a little weird. Their voices are often described as sort of sing-song and kind of unusual. Right. And this is a way of standing that, yes, you're capable of standing like that with your hands in your armpits. Yeah. Some people, I think, genetically are predisposed to maybe do that their whole lives, but it's not a majority of people. I think when most people stand with their arms folded, they stand with them folded in front of them, not necessarily tucking their palms up into their pits. Some people do that, but not Mary Catherine from Mary Catherine Gallagher, yes. She's great. Shannon. Different arms. Yes. I think in this, again, the gesture that he's doing, he's trying not to scare this guy. I'm sure he's an intelligent creature. Maybe he realized, there's not much I can do. I just came down from a big metal tube. He's going to be scared, and I'm communicating with him through my mind. But he's trying to be as nice as possible. But he does have some questions for Woody. Listen to this.
He told me not to be frightened, which I was very frightened. And as far as I can understand, this was all mental. There was no spoken words from him. I knew what he was asking me. But yet he stood there and his mouth did not move. He had a smile on his face. He appeared very courteous and friendly.
So as the interview goes on, the journalist continues to ask him, did you ever believe in flying saucers prior to this incident? And he says, what would you think of a story like that if someone told it to you?
I believe now that that couldn't happen. If someone would have told me yesterday before this happened, I would practically believe in that. But I honestly believe now that it could happen. I'm sure we're not going to say it couldn't happen. Like he's doing last night, or this man, he gave me no indication that he wanted me on his ship. He didn't ask me to get out of my truck. As I say, he's very friendly and courteous.
Right, so there's all of that. First of all, I love he would say it was a nut. I love the expression, and in our family, you joked about me being opie, but one of my favorite things about the Andy Griffith Show was when they would call Barney a nut, or Andy would call Ernest T. Bass, which no one's going to know yet. No, Ernest T. was the crazy guy who came out of the mountains, throwing rocks at everything. That's right. There goes a happy man, there goes a happy nut. Obviously in the late 60s, people were calling each other nuts. Not politically correct anymore. So please don't send anything else. He's at the beer sellers from the, it's like, that guy's crazy. He's like, we don't say that now. He's like, well, what do you call them? He's like, now. I was like, well, he's a little now. Yeah, it's a little. Anyways, but no, here's what's an interesting aspect of this. If you don't believe any of this, you think well, he's just got an angle here. Maybe he's going to write a book later. Who knows? So far, none of this Mothman business has happened yet. Yeah. Okay, so keep that in mind. Yeah. Secondly, it's a pretty darn good piece of science fiction. And what I mean by that is his details are creative. They're not the old hackney, round saucer came out, a guy with 3 eyes and green skin and antenna. What I'm talking about is My Favorite Martian. Yeah. Just around the same time. Yeah. You gotta have antenna poking out of your head. It's none of those cliche aspects. And again, not that somebody with a story like that, we've certainly heard some that did have a few of those cliche elements, which were kind of fantastical. But here you have a pretty unique story with a unique being and an encounter that if he is making this all up, it's pretty well done, I'd say. Because it's varied enough. It's unusual. It's unique. That doesn't validate his story. I'm just saying that, again, if you want to take the tack that you don't believe it, I would give him credit, though, for the uniqueness of this. Yeah, there was a lot of interesting things about it. The journalist went on to ask him what kind of noise the craft made. And he said it's kind of like a helicopter, but much, much quieter, hovering. A fluttering sound. He actually does an imitation. And he said the cold was 6 feet tall. Yeah, 180 to 185 pounds. Oh, this is what I love. Is that 30 to 35 years old? Yeah. Well, Ronald Main's kind of tests him. He's very generous in the interview. Yeah, but he kind of tests him here a little bit. He said, well, I'll stand up here. How tall do you think I am? How much do you think I weigh? Yeah. And he nailed it. He said, I don't know, 150, 160. He's like, you're right on the dot. Yeah. So just seeing if this guy's way off or whatever. But yeah, so he was saying that cold was about 6 feet, maybe a little under that. Yeah. 5'10" or so, and about 100, I think
180 to 185 pounds.
Yeah. So he's a good judge of that.
And then he said the other, you talk about mains testing, because so if he's talking to you telepathically, why'd you have to roll the window down? but Darren Berger said it wasn't raining at this time, but it had been raining. Yeah, there was a lot of water on the windshield and in the rain street.
Yeah, so
it's easier for us to see each other.
Right, because he's like, well, did he have to do it to hear you? He's like, well, no, he could obviously hear my thoughts.
Yeah.
He did it to get a clear view of him.
I looked up the weather that night. I mean, it's obviously easy to talking about next morning. Right. There was just over 3/4 of an inch of precipitation in Harrisburg that night.
That's kind of cool that you can find that out these days.
Some places you can look up historical weather.
Right. So that's kind of the setup here. He rolls down the window, and the questions are also interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not take me to your leader. He just wants to know some basic information about there's a little lights over there. Is that where people live? What's going on? Again, he's not lost from out of town.
Yeah.
And he's looking for the nearest Howard Johnson's.
Well, that's going to be an ongoing theme again with some of these visitations that come up during the course of the Mothman story. Is the people who are arriving clearly have a more advanced state of technology of some kind, or at least appear to. They give the impression that they do, but they are often seen disoriented with regard to where they are and what time it is.
The time aspect especially is
Yeah.
interesting. So he asked him, how do you support yourself? How do you nourish yourself? He's like, well, I have a job. I have to raise it. Do you have to work for a living? Like, yes.
Yeah.
And he then asks Cold, or Cold gives that up. He said he was not clammed up. He was giving him information. Another thing is that had Woody not been so freaked out and scared at the moment, he said that he felt he would have answered more questions had he had the wherewithal to ask them.
Yeah.
But he was just like basically overwhelmed by the situation and didn't really ask him too much.
Yeah, he said he had a lot more questions now that it was over, which is how anything is. It's usually what happens on
hindsight.
Yeah, if I get into an altercation with somebody, all the things I want to say don't come to me till the next day.
That's the way behind the staircase.
Yeah.
He was asking basically like, well, what happens if you have to work for a living? And here's another interesting aspect, again, which would be good science fiction writing, I believe. Cole then says, well, I'm a searcher.
I told him I was a salesman. And he told me that he was a searcher. A searcher. But he didn't what he was searching for, or he didn't.
Yeah, I'm a searcher. So what is he searching for? It's a good question. What's gone lost or missing, or what does he have to corral?
The other thing that's really interesting is the last thing, the sign-off, the last thing that Cole said to Woody. And these sign-offs are going to come up again with other encounters. The one that the movie made famous was, I'll see you in time. Which is not what Cole said. That's what another character said in another encounter of Vadik, which we'll get down to that. He's the one that said, I'll see you in time. Cole said this, according to Woody.
And he was getting ready to leave. He stepped back from the truck about one step. And he said, Mr. Berger, we will see you again. He didn't say I, he said we will see you again.
This whole story, Keel himself said he probably would have dismissed it. He has had no shortage of encounters with people who are fond of UFOs and that tend to have a tendency to make things up or want things to be true.
Yeah, they want a little interaction, and they don't care how fantastical it sounds. People also want attention from bad things they do. They don't care where it comes from. They just want some kind of interaction, connection, and attention. We've certainly seen plenty of that with our emails.
Yeah.
Sometimes people contacting us.
But the point is, Woody wasn't the only man who encountered somebody like this on that night.
Oh, no.
Before we get on to the other accounts, though, did you happen to see if Ender Cole is online?
Yeah, well, he's got a website. Well, actually, he's just targeting a domain name right now.
Oh, he can't figure out where to put it. You know what I bet he's doing? I bet he's looking for a great place where he can design it himself super easy.
Well, if he wants to do it himself, he should use Squarespace. Because if you're doing any kind of creative project, like creating a family album, or promoting your side business, or even organizing roadside interviews for your interdimensional travel blog, you need a website. And Squarespace is the easiest all-in-one way to create your own fabulous website in days instead of weeks.
With Squarespace, you can express yourself or promote your business with a stylish, professional-looking website that works for you right away. That's because the idea behind Squarespace is that you don't need to know all that stuff to have your own awesome website.
They've done all the difficult coding and programming for you. All you have to do is choose from a collection of beautiful templates for your look, created by top-shelf designers, and then choose what you want your site to do. It's that easy. We're revamping our own website, and with just a few clicks, I was able to preview and compare several cool-looking theme choices so we can get an idea of what it'll look like. And Squarespace can handle all our e-commerce stuff, right? Absolutely. Squarespace can do all of that. Another thing we don't have to worry about are all the updates, upgrades, patches, fixes, and all the other stuff that the alternatives expect you to fix. Also, themes don't become obsolete and discontinued. Squarespace has your back with their award-winning 24/7 customer support. So check them out at squarespace.com. Register a domain name of your own and start your free website or online store trial now. When you're ready to launch, use the offer code LEGENDS to save 10%. Squarespace. Make it beautiful.
You're listening to Astonishing Legends with Scott Tilbrook and Forrest Burgess.
So as I said a few minutes ago before the break, this story might have been dismissed. Woody's story is pretty fantastical. There's a lot of things about it that don't make sense. If you have like a framework of how things might work with UFOs and laws of physics, and his story is very unusual. It's unusual, it doesn't make sense, and so therefore it's gotta be false. Or it's so unusual and it doesn't make sense in a cliched way. It seems more real.
Exactly.
Well, it certainly would seem more real if Woody's story wasn't the only one describing this type of encounter. So I'm going to read a short section from John Keel's book, The Mothman Prophecies. This is regarding an incident that took place on November 2nd, 1966, the exact same night that Woody encountered cold. The way the story came to Keel is that an elderly man went to visit a reporter who became a very good friend of Keel's and was someone that he worked with frequently and visited with whenever he was in the area researching the Mothman and the other goings-on, as my grandmother used to say, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Her name was Mary Heyer, and she was the star reporter for The Messenger. Mary had an elderly man come into her office and say, "I've just got to tell somebody this story." And I'm going to read it right here. He said this is coming straight out of Keel's book. The story he unfolded seemed totally unbelievable to Mrs. Heyer, who knew nothing of UFOs at the time. But she knew the man and was impressed by his sincerity. And by the way, I want to point out that Mrs. Heyer was very well respected by all the locals in the area, as an upstanding journalist and someone you could trust. From the Athens, Ohio Messenger. There we go, Athens, thank you. On November 2nd, 1966, he said, he and another worker were driving home to Point Pleasant from their job near Marietta, Ohio, on Interstate 77. As they neared Parkersburg, West Virginia, an elongated object appeared low in the sky and descended directly in front of them. They stopped their car, and a man emerged from the object and walked over to them. He looked like a normal man and was grinning broadly. He wore a black coat and kept his arms folded with his hands out of sight under his armpits. Just to interject, that's exactly what Woody described. The witness rolled his window down and it was a very brief conversation. The stranger asked the pair, and he strolled back to the dark cylinder, and it rose quickly into the chill, drizzling sky. Again, drizzling at night. They debated whether they should tell anybody, deciding against it. But the Point Pleasant resident found himself suffering from insomnia, and when he finally slept, he had strange nightmares. He started to hit the bottle, something very unusual for him. Mrs. Heyer listened to his story, nonplussed, and made a few notes. A day or so later, the man's son called on her and asked her not to print the story. Several weeks later, she repeated the story to me, this is to John Keel, and recalled the man on her office phone. He verified the details and then said, quote, "Look, don't use my name. I don't want to get involved in this thing. That scientist fellow told me." "What scientist?" I asked. A couple of weeks after this thing happened, a scientist from Ohio came to see us. He told us it would be better if we forgot the whole thing. How did he hear about it? How did he find you? Damned if I know. Did he identify himself? Sure, but I can't remember his name. But he seemed to know what he was talking about. I couldn't get much else out of him. That's the end of that story. But the main thing here is that this guy, who doesn't know Woody, actually came in and told Mary Heyer his story.
And she actually didn't even think that much about it because it was so kind of crazy. Right. She didn't realize what was about to unfold over the next year.
Unconnected.
Yeah.
Connected to Woody.
Yeah, the description's the same. The craft, the body language, the interaction. And again, the thing that comes up a lot, which we had already made an allusion to earlier in this episode, don't seem to know what time it is.
Right. Where am I?
Yeah.
They just don't know exactly where they are, and they don't really get our living arrangements. Certain things, small things, seem to, they're amazed and befuddled by them, maybe.
Well, it seems like wherever they're coming, if you believe any of this at all.
Right. We have to preface. We always preface.
We used to say that.
Yeah.
If you believe any of this at all. Yeah. It does seem like wherever these folks are coming from, they aren't able to gather a lot of information from here and take it back to where they are. Or they aren't able to get information from there to here, back and forth. There's no connection.
You bring up an interesting point, Scott, in that the things that are science currently, contemporary science and scientists, for those who want to play semantics with that, the model is that there are civilizations out there, and technically they are aliens, but maybe they're just like us. And they know about us because they've been receiving our radio television transmissions since much of the turn of the century. So say 1930s on, and beaming these signals out into space. So they know about I Love Lucy, Gilligan's Island, and
Those guys would have to be close because I Love Lucy only just passed Pluto in the last decade.
right, or maybe those transmissions are getting sucked into a wormhole. I'm just saying that's the opening of contact.
Yeah.
They know about us, they've been hearing about us, and again, that is another SETI model. Somebody's going to listen to us, monitoring us.
And maybe that's what the Black Knight satellite does. Maybe it gathers transmissions and then sends them through a wormhole.
I hope they get better download speeds than I do.
Yeah.
Or upload speeds, but that makes sense. We get that. We're beaming, our radio signals are traveling at the speed of light. They're being beamed off the planet. If you're close by or have someone to pick that up, they can. Well, you would know about all of our culture, about jobs, and our living groups known as cities. A multitude of information about everybody all over the planet. So if they're not able to get that, where are they coming from where they can't? Or maybe the vibration and the frequency is just off enough that it makes it difficult for them. They're able to transverse the planes, but there's some things, like you said, they only can get once they get here physically, like, wow, are my clothes out of date? Or, right, geez, I shouldn't have worn a shiny jacket.
Last time I was there, they were driving Cadillacs from the 60s.
Yeah, that guy's wearing tweed. I've got something from the future. So it's interesting you mentioned that. The other thing that's interesting is that it includes what's called a man in black encounter.
Yeah.
Always coming afterwards to warn you not to tell anybody. It would be best if you dropped it and forgot this. And this gentleman just thought he was from the university.
Yeah.
But obviously he's used to weird. Maybe his impression is that strange people from the university, he himself may appear as strange to people who are not used to that from these rural areas. Just in his appearance, dark suit, shoes that were impractical for the area, facial hair at the time in the mid-60s, unless you're wearing college professor, beatnik, or musician, or artist, was not real common. People were clean-shaven at that point. Now it's everybody's got 3-day growth, so things change. So your appearance may seem odd, but again, in his description, I think one of the first people to introduce that was the author Gray Barker. Some of these are big concepts that have survived to ufology today and remain as their own concepts to this day.
All right, so that's kind of the framework. We've gone over the framework of the setup of the beginning of this story. The Called Encounter with Woody Dernberger is a important part of the story. It's something that everyone talks about. And again, it would be just kind of another crazy UFO story if it weren't for the fact that we had these other gentlemen coming into Mary Hyer's office and saying they encountered pretty much the exact same dude on the same night.
It's a separate phenomenological, it's a separate account of something that could easily be taken as something completely unconnected and different. However, it has been, in hindsight, by many people who study this, definitely connected, right? Because it's such a different thing, and that's where we see the confluence of different phenomena happening here. as we discussed the timeline, that did occur first. So first, we have the National Guard sighting there. That, chronologically, is what we could find as the first occurrence, something in the area happened. It's something unusual. I mean, it's just one guy. He didn't, when he went to get the other folks, nobody was there, but he saw something big in a tree that was human size, the largest bird he's ever seen in his life. Yeah, he didn't see it flying, he didn't see it land, he didn't see it take off, he just saw it sitting in the tree. In a lot of ways, that seems like one of the first more significant ones. There are other sightings, which we will detail more in the other parts of the show, that have occurred earlier and later, all over the world, and some also in the Ohio River Valley, but the descriptions are different. It's something that was white, or it had a light on it, or it was those things are, when it comes to this specific type of description, right, the National Guard sighting, in a lot of ways, it seems like the first one, even though a lot of people say that the first one actually was November 12th. And the reason I make a point of this is because this is often, it doesn't happen a lot, folks, when you go to research something like this on your own, which we'll find is that there's a bunch of articles, they might mention an incident. And then if you kind of look, well, what's the source of that incident? And even if it's on Wikipedia or a site that you really respect, they seem to all kind of point to one blurb, maybe, that in and of itself. And just quickly, while you're saying that, a lot of people make fun of Wikipedia, but I want to be clear that Wikipedia has been found to be more accurate than Encyclopedia Britannica used to be. In fact, that was on NPR. You can kind of search that. And here's where the wording is interesting, the semantics of it, is that Wikipedia is crowdsourced in a way, is that very smart people who are really into this, who either study the stuff academically or just have studied it on an amateur level on their own, but are really into it, put these pages together, they're edited, they're checked out. With Encyclopedia Britannica, there's on average 5 to 6 things that there might be errors, or more likely they are points of contention. As we've said so many times in our shows, it's like you may have the top people in a field in academia disagreeing on a fact. So in Wikipedia, I believe it was found about 3 to 4 things per entry are debated. So less things on Wikipedia are debated than they are right, Encyclopedia Britannica. But here we have one entry that was only first seen on the West Virginia Department of Commerce's website, wvcommerce.org, where they claim this is the first sighting of the Mothman. And it's November 12, 1966, and it's a little story that goes, on this date, 5 members of a grave in a cemetery near Clendenin, West Virginia, and they saw something that looked like a brown human being flying. So basically, this thing's sitting in the trees, lifts off from the trees, flies over to them, kind of flies low over their heads, and this is no bird. It looked like a brown human being that was flying. And so here we have the first sighting of the Mothman. As it flew over them as they were digging the grave, right? Yeah, they're Surrounding's stepfathers. Yeah, I don't know if that's related, or if there's any connection to it actually being a burial site, but basically, these are 5 men that reported seeing a large brown creature. Wait, you don't know if what's related. I don't know if the brown flying man is related to the burial, like he was there observing. Right. I'm saying, like, but that's what they were doing. And that's what they were doing, yes. And so that just totally related. Yeah. Maybe nothing spooky about it. It wasn't visiting a relative or anything. So this thing is in the trees. They've seen large birds before, and that's the closest thing you want to see people attribute this to. It's a large sandhill crane. It's a large owl. There is one thing about this particular sighting that bothers me. Yeah. It's very interesting. There's a couple of things about it. One is that the only place that we can find it on the internet is at the Chamber of Commerce website. Right. When you go to Google Maps and you look at Clendenin, right on the map, there is a mark that says first sighting of Mothman. Yeah, so someone's gone to the effort to put that there. So I have a couple of issues just with this particular claim. We can't find it corroborated anywhere. This story with the grave diggers, or the people digging the grave, does not appear in John Keel's book. It does not appear in Greg Barker's book, which predates Keel's. Yeah, you did check. I searched the whole book. It's not in there. So it's not in either one of those 2 books. And those guys, between the 2 of them, they left no stone unturned when they covered this stuff. Barker's book actually came out before Keel's. Yeah, 5 years before. Yeah, I mean, some people see Barker as a little more fringy than Keel, and there's a lot of, that's funny, all kinds of things about it, but they knew each other. And there's some people that say that they were working together, or maybe frenemies, or I don't know, that kind of thing. But
either way, that particular story is not reported in either one of them. So what I'm seeing here is that we have this particular story about the grave diggers that's being reported in this town that is not Point Pleasant. It's been dated as being the first one. It seems a little bit like a one-off story. Like, the kind of story
by the town of Clendenin.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just, I want to know where it came from. I want to know who the people were. I want to see their written account or whoever it was when they told the story, or is this just local oral legend?
Okay,
Because you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the whole Billy the Kid controversy. Sooner or later, we're going to have to do Billy the Kid, but there's a couple of different towns that all say he lived there. And the reason they say that is because of the tourism dollars. It feels a little strange, and also I want to say point blank, November 12th is not the first sighting. If you go with the National Guard sighting, that was November 1st. Part of it's definitely not accurate.
Right, it's in the ballpark here, but as far as we can tell,
it feels a lot like, hey, what can we do to get a little more of these tourism dollars that Point Pleasant is getting?
Oh, well, that's interesting because, they don't say that there's a,
crazy with this one.
You're going to get a lot of angry letters from the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce. However, I will say this, they don't claim to have their own Mothman Festival as Point Pleasant does.
Well, you certainly couldn't do that.
So hey, come to ours, it's better. We did the first one, we're more accurate and authentic.
Well, there's two Bigfoot festivals.
Anybody can claim that. It's just all over the place. And you can say like the first sighting of Patty in the woods, but nobody's going out there.
Right.
What I see happening here is that I think it's perfectly valid or plausible that 5 men did report seeing a strange, large brown flying man. Whether you believe that or not, or what they saw accurately or not, that may have happened.
How far is Clendenin from Point Pleasant?
79 miles southwest of Point Pleasant. Clendenin is
southwest. I don't feel like the Mothman got down that way so much. He felt like he was going north, northeast along the river, staying close to the river. Gallipolis. How do you say
Gallipolis, I would say. Gallipolis. It's not Gallipolis.
It's Gallipolis.
Gallipolis.
Yeah, Gallipolis. So these towns are all along the river. The bulk of the sightings of this particular brilliant, for lack of a better word, of the Mothman occur there. So
maybe there's more than one.
Maybe there is.
Maybe there's several brown flying men. You got to start somewhere with a legend.
Yeah,
and I think what the Chamber of Commerce is saying, this is it. I don't think there's any big rivalry between Clendenin and Point Pleasant. Of course, it's who's got the better museum.
No.
Who's got the
There's only one museum.
Exactly.
There is only one.
So it's all the state of West Virginia. So I don't see any collusion there or one-upsmanship with who's got the first sighting.
Yeah, regardless, it's folklore, and it's probably silly to argue about it.
Yeah, we're trying to be factual here.
We are trying to
lay out the timeline, but I think they're not so much.
Well, yeah, more to the point, I said everything occurred right there along the river, but there were some sightings that were actually pretty far away from there.
On the night of November 13th, 1966, now we get going here.
Yeah,
here's where the story starts picking up a lot of speed. In fact, 100 miles an hour speed.
This is 13 days after Woody's encounter with Indrid Cold.
Pretty fresh.
Yeah.
These events happening. Another point where we can say they may be somewhat connected.
They may be, and also I just want to say from the point of a hoax or exaggeration or whatever, if you're trying to jump on the bandwagon of Woody's story is about a man and a UFO. This is completely unrelated to that in terms of the nature of the story.
This is a more
encrypted
story.
Yeah, it's associated by time.
The point that we had mentioned in earlier episodes, especially with Skinwalker leading up to that, is that now we're seeing this pattern very much in general, and so the whole paranormal community, I guess, sees it as well. A lot of these strange things happen in conjunction. Same time, same areas, same place. It used to be seemingly unrelated. What is it? Bigfoot got to do with the UFO, and then Chewbacca piloting the Millennium Falcon. Right? Like, what do these got to do with each other? Connections can be made, and a point we may have not said before, but people who study these things quite a bit will believe in one thing but not the other.
Yes.
So, like, I'm a UFO guy. Bigfoot is silly and stupid, and people that research that are idiots. And people who say ghosts, oh, you bet. Bigfoot, no way. Right? UFOs, I don't know, maybe. So there's nobody that really takes all these into conjunction. And when you see reportage of all this together, you may not see any kind of linked occurrences from the investigator. They may dismiss stuff like, well, I don't do orbs. Right? But 100 people saw this giant glowing orb. Yeah, that's not anything I have to do with.
Yeah.
However, these are connected events here that are very interesting because now, like I said, a lot of stuff, like a Spielberg movie, is happening in a very short amount of time.
Considering that Kill's book came out in 75 and Parker's book came out before that, right? There's no shortage of things in these books that I think probably inspired Spielberg to write close encounters.
I believe so. I think that's fair to say, along with J. Allen Hynek.
Yeah, and Jacques Vallée. Truffaut played Jacques Vallée in Close Encounters. So all this stuff, Spielberg was consuming this stuff for sure. Yeah, which is awesome. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, very enjoyable, sure.
But yes, we're talking about the home of Newell Partridge, which was how far away from Point
It's about 90 miles, Salem is,
in West Virginia.
So you have a fair distance around the same time, I believe, at night here. Some other things going on, other witnesses seeing stuff closer to Point Pleasant. So this thing gets around.
Yeah. So and it's fast. Yes, and this is November 14th, 1966, which is going to be 12 days after Lee Durenberger encountered Andrew Cole. Partridge had a dog. His family had a dog named Bandit. He was a big, muscular German Shepherd. And he, I guess, was going crazy on the porch around 10:30 that night.
Around 10:30 p.m., Newell was watching television, and he said the screen went dark, and then it came back on with a very apparent and then he heard a loud whining sound from outside that he said was kind of winding up in a picture of a generator running around. And I'm not sure if the TV was also making that sound, if it was coming from the television as well. As outside, I think it was mostly outside. Well, now the dog is starting to go crazy. He's been taking him hunting, so he's very territorial. So Bandit, Partridge's dog, began to howl from the porch. Grabs his flashlight and goes outside to see what's going on. So when he got outside, he's looking at the barn about 150 yards from the house, and he shined the flashlight in that direction. And that's when he saw the two red glowing eyes that to him looked like red bicycle reflectors.
And he said when he was a kid, he went hunting at night all the time. He knows what animal eye shine looks like. He'd seen every kind of animal you could think of, and he said these things were huge, and being 150 yards away, to have them show up from that distance, there was something very ominous about it.
Yeah, no tiny little beady bird eye is going to give you that amount of shine, at least a diameter, from that distance.
Bandit apparently was not having that fear.
No,
he leapt off the porch and ran towards the hay barn.
Right. So he takes off across the yard there, and Partridge, of course, yells at him to stop, and he's like when a dog sees a squirrel, who sees red. Literally, this time he sees red. Not hearing anything. Runs out after him. Now, Partridge goes back inside, he grabs a shotgun. And then,
this is not a man prone to fear.
No, this is a man who's hunting. This is a man going out
in the dark.
Yeah. Up against wild animals with his trusty shotgun. He goes outside, and here's an interesting connection to a previous episode I noticed. Partridge suddenly gets the fear, and he is too scared to go outside, and so he basically sleeps with the shotgun propped up next to the bed.
Yeah, he didn't want to chase Bandit as much as he loved that dog, and he was worried.
Yeah.
He was so afraid that he did not go after the dog.
Another manly man of the rugged outdoors, Terry Sherman, had the same experience on Skinwalker Ranch when the dogs chased these birds. Exactly.
Yeah.
And who he loved had this deep, dark feeling like, don't go after them. And a lot of times, with our outdoor dogs, they're big and strong. It's like, they'll figure out what they need. Look, they're wild animals. They figure out what they need to do. If they get in a fight, they know how to get out of it, too. The fight or flight mechanism at some point will tell them what to do. Anyway, he's too scared to check it out. So he, in the morning, realizes that, oh my God, the dog never came back. And he was never to be found again.
Yeah, so he gets up the next day, and he's like, I've got to go down there. And under the comforting feeling of daylight, he goes down to the barn, about where he thought he saw the eyes, and he sees these dog tracks in the mud from Bandit. And he can see the tracks leading down because the ground was wet, and it was kind of muddy. And then he sees the tracks right where he thought the eyes were, and they're just running in a circle, which Bandit never did. Just kind of running back and forth in circles, and he can't really figure out what happened, and there's no tracks leading away. Essentially, Bandit had vanished into thin air,
similar to a Sherman Ranch experience.
It is. However, with this story, and the things we're starting to put together about the Mothman, which clearly, as you've said in the past with Skinwalker and also with our interview with Linda Godfrey and the Dogman stories, these things need to eat. Well, for all we know, the Mothman grabbed Bandit and took off. Oh dear. And we're going to find out something that maybe supports that theory here in a minute with the next encounter. Forrest, you like hearing about crimes, frauds, and scandals, right? Are you talking about the upcoming election? Well, yeah, I am sort of, but I'm actually talking about the Great Courses Plus and one of our favorite lecture series there, Forensic History, Crimes, Frauds, and Scandals. And I just got done watching the episode Bad Boys of U.S. Politics. Are you sure you're not talking about the election? No, but I am talking about one particular bad boy from our political history, Warren G. Harding. He had extramarital affairs and paid huge sums of hush money to cover them up. He put his inexperienced cronies in high positions who then ended up embezzling large amounts of taxpayer money. He was involved in a corruption scandal with natural resources, and then he finally clocks out in what many people consider a suspicious death.
Wow, and people think our current choices are unappealing. Just goes to show you there's nothing new under the sun, but you can always learn about something new with the Great Courses Plus.
Exactly. And it's not just about politics, science, and history. You can learn about everything from health, fitness, and nutrition to food, wine, and travel.
And these courses go everywhere you do, because you can watch them on your tablet, your phone, your laptop, or you can stream them on your TV at home.
And now you can sample as many of these courses as you want with a month-long, unlimited, free trial membership.
Oh, thanks to learning all about him in this lecture and your endorsement, I know what I'm voting for in November. I'm writing in Warren G. Harding.
No, that was not an endorsement by anyone. Secondly, he's dead. And third, he's widely considered the worst president in U.S. history.
Well, yeah, but at least he has experience.
Start your month-long, unlimited, free trial membership now. Sign up at thegreatcoursesplus.com/legends. Again, that's thegreatcoursesplus.com/legends.
There's a conspiracy afoot.
Your voice is too crazy. What are you doing? A car commercial? Come on.
There's a conspiracy.
Now back it down further.
That's all I can do. There's a conspiracy to get you to pay about twice what you should be paying for quality shaving blades.
Really? So who is it? The Illuminati, Spectre, the mustache wax cabal? Mustache, what is that? Mustache wax?
Cabal.
Cabal, yeah.
It's who would want to keep you from shaving, that's the point. Who wants to keep you from using quality blades? I'm going to say no on the Illuminati. I've met a few of them, and they all seem kind of unkempt. No, I'm talking about the corporations that make personal grooming products and expect you to cough up around $35 for a pack of 8 razor blades just because they think you don't have any other choice. But now you do with Harry's.com.
Harry's owns their own manufacturing plant in Germany. So not only can they make a high-quality blade, they can cut out the middleman and sell direct to you online for about half the price of your store-bought razor cartridges.
And we're talking about a 5-bladed cartridge with a smooth friction fighter strip and now a soccer flex hinge, just like the ones you're overpaying for in the store. And it's not just the blades that are top-notch. Their line of lotions and creams are high-end spa quality, too.
If you're still not convinced, go to Harry's.com and check out these razors.
You know, we've also had our female listeners tell us they like Harry's because ladies shave too, so it's not just for the gents. In fact, Harry's is so confident in the quality of their blades, no matter what you're shaving. They'll send you their very popular trial set, which comes with a razor, 5-blade cartridge, and shaving gel for free.
Get your free trial set when you subscribe to Harry's.com, HARRYS.com. You just pay $3 for shipping. Plus, I have a special offer that's just for you guys. Enter the code LEGENDS at checkout and get a post-shave balm for free with your order.
I've been a customer for a couple of years now, and I can tell you, really, you do have a choice when it comes to getting quality shave gear at a reasonable price. In fact, I just use them this morning, which is why I sound so darn smooth. Go to Harry's.com right now, enter code LEGENDS at checkout, and claim your free trial set plus the post-shave balm. That's Harry's.com, code LEGENDS.
And now back to Astonishing Legends with Scott Philbrook and Forrest Burgess.
The very next night, back in Point Pleasant, there were 2 young couples that had gone out in a car
out to one of the spookier parts of town to hang out and probably Nick.
So let's make out point. Yeah, it's what the locals call the TNT area.
Well, and this is an interesting area, and when I stayed there, I wish I'd gone there. I think I was too nervous, and also we didn't have a lot of time, me and Jerry.
Yeah, it's also very toxic.
Well, there is a super fun side, but also there's no. This is a very large section, and what had happened, the reason it's called the TNT area is because during World War II, they built a plant there to make explosives for the war effort.
Munitions and shells.
Exactly, but to conceal the plant from the air, from any prying eyes, they built bunkers to store the explosives in, and then the bunkers had earth on top of them. So from a large concrete dome, everyone knew the area was a bird sanctuary. It had been one for a long time. It had been a wildlife refuge and a bird sanctuary in this kind of area. So from the air, with these concrete bunkers with grass and plants on top of them, that's pretty much what it looked like. Yeah, so it was a concealed operation, and therefore theoretically not a target to blow up, since it's creating this stuff. After the war effort ended, there were still a lot of toxic chemicals there. Like I said, it's a Superfund site for those of you that are not in the United States. A Superfund site is a site that gets earmarked as a particularly bad environmental disaster, and it gets access to special emergency funds to mitigate what had happened there environmentally in the past to make it safe for nature and people and everyone to continue using.
You know, you have to consider during the war, no effort can be spared, so they were making ordnance there. And of course, some of those chemicals have leached into the groundwater, so the aquifers, basically you don't want to dig a well there and start drinking copious amounts of water.
And some of the bunkers have been leased out to companies who were storing things there, and there was some company that was storing things there as recently as 2010, and we have a link to this in the show notes. One of the bunkers exploded. Yeah, and it exploded bad. Blew the doors off. You can look at pictures of it. It's now just a hole. And
that's part of the design, though, right? The heavy concrete reinforcement, not only from bombardment to the air, but maybe
in an accident. Yeah. It's also my understanding from Keel's book, there were a lot of homes out there. Now, I don't know if the homes are still there. His book was written 30 years ago. But there were people that lived out that way too, and when the Mothman sighting started, they had to deal with all kinds of people coming around who didn't have a whole lot else to do. Once this story came out, everybody was like, hey, that's the perfect thing to do tonight. But at this point, that hadn't happened. The story about the Mothman wasn't really out there, even though the night before, Partridge had this weird issue with Bandit disappearing. This is the next night. Word's still not out about that. Word's still not out about all the strange things going on. And these two couples headed out there. They were very young at the time. This was Mr. and Mrs. Roger Scarberry. Linda was her name, I think.
Yeah, Roger and Linda Scarberry. And Steve and Mary Millette.
Yes. Yeah. So they were driving in the TNT area. And Scarberry's 1957 Chevy. And they were looking for other people to hang out with, I guess, but the roads were deserted and nobody was out there.
There's houses, but again, it's not very populated.
Right. And locally they call the bunkers igloos. And the igloos have certain numbers, igloo RS3 or whatever, and they're sort of mapped out and laid out in different areas now. So they came back there to where there was a gate that was unlocked, and they could pull inside and sort of drive around. You know, it's classic sort of urban exploration.
It's also a great scenario for a spooky Halloween story.
Right. Well, as they got up next to the actual plant where the explosives used to be made, Linda noticed something. And she told everyone, and they all looked over, and they saw two bright red circles. They were about 2 inches in diameter and 6 inches apart. Roger slammed on his brakes. This is from Keel's book. What is it? Mary Millette said. The lights bobbed away from the building, and the startled foursome saw that they were attached to some huge animal. It was shaped like a man, but bigger, Roger said. Maybe 6.5 or 7 feet tall, and it had big wings folded against its back. It was the eyes that got us, Linda declared. It had 2 big eyes like automobile reflectors. They were hypnotic, Roger continued. For a minute, we could only stare at it. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. So they said it was gray in color and walked on sturdy man-like legs. And it turned, and I've seen this in a lot of reenactments, a lot of documentaries, but the way this thing walks with the big wings, it's scary looking. Like, I mean, I know they're reenactments, but this is a thing that is better off than flight, because when it flies, and they talk about it flying, a lot of times there's not a whole lot of flapping. It's almost like it's effortlessly flying. It has the ability to leap vertically straight up into the air. with very little effort, but it doesn't seem to walk all that great. It's not very graceful on the ground. Here's something that I always found interesting because what they did is they found that fake hoaxed clip on YouTube of the guy who's got the flying machine that he built. He takes off from the park, and it looks pretty real. You know, we're talking like Brewster McCloud here, right? Like cool that up, folks. But he's flying around, and it's something that he made. But what you have to realize that human beings are too heavy. Birds have like little air pockets, little air bubbles in their bones to make them even lighter. Yeah, birds don't weigh very much. A sandhill crane weighs at the most 9-10 pounds, I think. Before I look that up, because that is a big bird, and we're going to talk about it very soon here, but that's the closest they can get to grab to. Well, obviously, these legs aren't bird legs, and so what they're describing, though, again, similar to maybe the 5 grave diggers, yeah, similar to what the National Guardsmen reported. Everyone's seeing the same thing. Everyone's seeing pretty much the same thing. And the only difference is that you hear sometimes is some people say it's brown, some people say it's gray, which would be an easy color to mistake, especially in the darkness. It's similar enough. Yeah, Partridge is saying that he saw the same red glowing bicycle reflector eye. Those are big eyes. Yeah, I read a fair amount about eye shine. We're going to talk more about that when we talk about the other incidents and theories and that sort of thing in the other parts for this episode. But the eye shine, and red eye shine specifically, is something that you see in an animal that is nocturnal and hunts at night. It has the ability to see in the dark, and in some cases a lot better than it sees in the daytime. And although this creature had been sighted in the daytime, the predatory behavior that it exhibits in most of the sightings occurs after dark. It sounds too big to actually fly. Yeah. So that's an unusual, paranormal, I don't know, supernatural aspect of this. Not that I'm saying that it discounts the stories. You could certainly argue that. It seems too heavy, too big to fly with big, muscular, man-like legs. All right, so Steve, I guess, freaked out. He's like, let's get out of here. Roger, who's driving the car, floors it. They shoot out of the gates. They spun out onto the exit road, and they just headed for Route 62. And then they saw it again. Or another one just like it, as Keel said. As they hurtled past it, it spread its bat-like wings and took off straight up into the air, according to Keel's book. My God, it's following us, the couple in the backseat cried. Roger swung on to 62 on 2 wheels. We were doing 100 miles an hour, Roger said, and the bird kept right with us. It wasn't even flapping its wings. I could hear it making a sound, Miss Smollett added. It squeaked like a big mouse. Followed us right to the city limits, Roger went on. The funny thing is, we noticed a dead dog by the side of the road there. A big dog. But when we came back a few minutes later, the dog was gone. So these guys drove to the courthouse and ran into the sheriff's office and told their whole story to Deputy Millard Houston. Millard says to the Keel, quote, I've known these kids all their lives. They've never been in any trouble, and they were really scared that night. I took them very seriously. So he got in his car. He follows Roger back to the TV area. They look for the dog's body. This is just a few minutes later. He's gone. So they come back to the power plant. No sign of it. Houston switched on his police radio, and a very loud signal blasted out of the speaker, drowning out the voice of the police dispatcher at Point Presley. It was a loud garble, but the record of the tape recording being played at a very high speed. Deputy Houston, an experienced cop, looked taken aback and said nothing. He switched the radio off quickly and peered uncomfortably into the darkness, reluctant to really search the old building, but he was convinced. So that's the story. Mary Heyer, who we mentioned earlier, who's a journalist who worked with Q, sent that story out over the wire the next day, and that's when it went global.
But that's when John Keel found it, right?
Yes, and apparently some anonymous copy editor, they don't even know who it was, named this character after a Batman comic character from the TV series, and he called it the Mothman. I don't know a whole lot about comics. I know we have listeners that do. We have listeners who create comics.
Oh, yes, we do.
And apparently this guy tagged the creature the Mothman, and the Batman lore I can only find Killer Moth.
That's actually the official, I believe, print version, official designated.
So I wonder if on TV maybe they call it Mothman. I don't know. I'm sure we'll get some emails.
The TV series was of course awesome and
Well, you do your impression of the Simpsons guy.
Which the comic book. We're in the suit.
Now I'm asking for impressions.
I used to hate them. He doesn't like the ones that I can do really well. Or, he was actually called King Buff.
Yeah.
That's not a comic book story guy. That's an upset nerd.
Oh, right.
It was 37. You said this was incorrect.
Right.
That's how he gets named. Like a lot of things, like Foo Fighters, like Kincaid's Cave, all these things that we mentioned. There's a little bit of misprint in a paper, and Tamam should becomes Taman should.
Yeah.
This happens throughout history, folks, but you know what? Go with it.
The bottom line is this thing was fast. It flew almost effortlessly. It kept up with this 57 Chevy. These guys floored, I believe, every bit it could do 100 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
They were scared to death. The sheriff described them as being frightened. And on its own, the story might be, oh, these kids just got spooked. They saw a barred owl, which is what some people have said. Oh, it was a barred owl. It was a sandhill crane, whatever. But it isn't just this story. It's this story in conjunction with all the other stories happening at the same time. And these are just a few, just the first of a small number of witnesses that eventually will grow to exceed 100 people. Now, you can easily imagine that these additional people, some of them probably bought into hysteria and they saw something that really wasn't this thing. But if you take 100 people, if even 10 of them are seeing something unexplainable, and this was still only just the beginning of a long series of events, many of which we're going to share in the next episode. You're going to hear about more encounters similar to this one, and some that are even more bizarre and different again from the movie. The movie kind of only deals with the Mothman encounters, but there was so much more going on. There were Men in Black encounters that defy explanation. Indrid Cold showed up again, at which point he shared his first name. Up until this point, he had only said, "I'm called Cold." He showed up at Woody's house later, and this time in a black Volkswagen.
He's breaking with tradition.
Yeah, he's breaking with tradition.
She likes bulbous vehicles.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there were more stories of Men in Black all over the place. And then another strange phenomenon, too. Really strange stuff starts happening to Keel through this network of people that he knows, who he describes as contactees, which is what he refers to anyone who's witnessed a UFO, especially up close. He never goes into Hynek. It was Hynek that came up with the classification system, right?
Yeah, based on the way people recorded, it's a way to measure the intensity, depth of experience of your sighting or your interaction.
Keel's approach to that and to dealing with people who have been eyewitnesses to things is to look more at the psychological impact of their interactions. And that's something that is really particularly interesting. And then when you take all this and you put it together with the Mothman, there was something going on there too, psychologically. Aside from the people like little Partridge who stood on his porch with a shotgun in his hand and was still too afraid to move out there towards that barn, he had what he described as an eerie sense of fear. There was another feeling that people were having.
A lot of people poo-poo this and are more than eager to tell us that it's bunkum baloney, that there is often a deep down emotional feeling that's tied to the supernatural and experiencing the paranormal. And we personally never have. But we can tell you, a lot of people have told us, and stories we've come across have. And I believe they're sincere. So, again, a feeling is not something we can relate, but that is an interesting aspect that you bring up here, because I had remembered hearing these accounts. And one thing that was recorded with these people, not all of them, of course, but a good number, is that there was a deep down emotional feeling. Now, unlike Mr. Partridge's feeling of fear, there was certainly that. But the other thing that was described, coming from this being, this creature, was a deep down feeling of despair and sorrow. It's an odd kind of emotion to be feeling from some creature like this, like it was trying to express something, like sympathy, or it was trying to help in some way, but it just did not have the communication tools. And when you look at it, like, well, that sounds kind of weird and silly, that it was sad. But some folks think it had a message for Point Pleasant, a warning that something bad was coming to that sweet little town. A human tragedy of epic proportions that would permanently scar everyone in that community. Well, that's going to wrap
it up for part 1 of the Mothman, we'd like to thank ZipRecruiter, Squarespace, The Great Courses Plus, and Harry's.com for sponsoring us. We'll be back next week with the next part of the series when things are going to get even stranger. Thank you to George Pickering, Ray Castaneda, and Sarah Cozumera for lending us their voices. Our show is edited by Sarah Voorhees, and the theme is by Judson Crane. Sound design is by Brian McCollum. Special thanks to the ARC and its lead researcher, Tess Feifel. But most importantly, we want to thank our listeners. You can find us online at astonishinglegends.com, as well as Facebook, Patreon, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, and Instagram. Copyright Scott Philbrook and Forrest Burgess. Good night.
And March 27th is Jersey Mike's annual day of giving, where 100% of sales from every sub are given back to the community.
And if you don't feel like giving, Peter gave me an apron.
Looking good, Danny. You got subs to make, though.
Yeah, now I know why you gave me the apron. Join us Wednesday, March 27th for Jersey Mike's Day of Giving. Be a sub.
Excellence is stopping.
Have you ever wanted to give back to your community to make a difference? Help the next generation. You can have all of this and make a great paycheck too. EduStaff is hiring substitute teachers and paraprofessionals in your local school districts. Apply to be an EduStaff substitute at edustaff.org.
Excellence is stopping. Excellence is stopping.
Your local school districts constantly face a shortage of substitute teachers and support staff. EduStaff is America's #1 choice for substitute staffing, and we're hiring people like you to help our school districts. Apply to be an EduStaff substitute today at edustaff.org.
Excellence is stopping. Get year-round comfort knowing your home is backed by industry-leading Lennox equipment and expert technicians at Great Lakes Heating and Air Conditioning. Special savings opportunities and federal tax credits are available. So call 574-287-5046 or visit us online at greatlatesheating-ac.com/keep-on to learn more. Excellence is stopping.
Have you ever wanted to give back to your community to make a difference? Help the next generation. You can have all of this and make a great paycheck too. EduStaff is hiring substitute teachers and paraprofessionals in your local school districts. Apply to be an EduStaff substitute at edustaff.org.
Excellence is stopping.
Hey, voice assistant. Programar cuarto nuevo.
Especificar el cuarto de la casa.
Ático.
Solo puedo agregar cuartos con internet.
Eso, ahora que tenemos AT&T All-Fi, somos millonarios. Hay cobertura de esquina a esquina, hasta el Ártico.
Recalculando. Ahora con AT&T All-Fi, agrega Wi-Fi de esquina a esquina. Obtén AT&T Fiber con All-Fi y vive como millonario. Disponibilidad limitada. La cobertura requiere extensores con un cargo adicional.
Astonishing Legends is supported by Movement Watches, The Great Courses Plus, Squarespace, and Macwell.
And we're back. You may have noticed that tonight's show took a little longer to download. That's because since it's our Halloween special, we decided to post it in stereo rather than mono. For the sake of Ryan's wonderful sound design. We generally don't post Astonishing Legends in stereo because it doubles file size, taking longer to download, and using up more space when you're already overburdened podcast playback device. But what posting in mono does to Ryan's sound design is a straight up crime. So tonight, take out those headphones, or play us back with the best system at your disposal. Because Ryan isn't fooling around, and we're coming at you in high fidelity.
I don't know if that was completely necessary, but we're an independent show and we get to do what we want. We want to say thanks to everyone for all the positive feedback on part 1 of this series. Yes, and please leave us a positive review at iTunes. We need as many as we can get in there to offset the occasional rabid trolls that pop up like a weed in your driveway. We hadn't said how many parts it was going to be last week because sometimes we can't be sure until we start working on the topic. However, we now know that the Mothman series is going to be 4. You'll have to brace yourselves, however, because there's going to be a dark
Dark Week between parts 1 and 2 and parts 3 and 4. Part 4 will be a discussion of our theories on the legend, scientific and supernatural alike. The Dark Week is there so I can manage Halloween with my son and also properly install and subsequently take down all of the animatronics and fog machines that grace my front porch this time of year. That's going to be fun. But you know what isn't fun? Being chased by the Mothman.
You can't even say right on the radio right now some of the words that used to be okay. I can't even say it on the phone or this I've heard other shows doing whole audio like 30 years ago.
Welcome back to Astonishing Legends. I'm Scott Philbrook, and this is Forced Emergence. UFOs do not seem to exist as tangible, manufactured objects. They do not conform to the accepted natural laws of our environment. They seem to be nothing more than transmogrifications tailoring themselves to our ability to understand. John A. Keel, author of The Mothman Prophecies. Join us tonight for the second part of our series on the astonishing legends of the Mothman. Alright, before we ramp back up into this thing, a quick thanks to everyone sending in pronunciation information on the local towns in this story. Like Point Plaisante, just kidding, it's Point Pleasant. But seriously, we have gotten a lot of advice, and I want all the listeners who have written us and tweeted at us and sent us every kind of message you can imagine about that little town across the river. I want them to know that there are ongoing conflicts between how people think the town that is spelled Galliwillis Very good. should be pronounced.
Yeah, I love words, I love etymology.
And entomology.
Well, bugs and words, yes. But they differ slightly, which I found fascinating. These are people who live in the area. I don't know for how many generations, because I believe that also makes a difference.
Yes, I think it does. And for me, being from the South, I know about this is with all due respect, I lived in North Carolina, but I'm going to say the bastardization of words. It's like you say, I'm not from the deep South, but Cajun is born of Arcadia.
Right.
And in North Carolina, sometimes syllables get dropped. I can't speak for West Virginia, but I'm going to say that probably happens there too. But you know what? Emily, my wife, had this idea. She was like, just find a local newscast. Well, I should do this. So today I did look one up, which did jive with a lot of the recommendations we got for the town of Gallipolice.
Well, we also saw Gallipolice and Gallipolice.
Right. Well, that's what I think. Gallipolice. Gallipolice. That's what I should have said. Gallipolice. Excuse me. Gallipolice, Ohio. And then across the river is Gallipolice Ferry. I haven't looked that one up. I wouldn't be surprised if they're different. Because you know what it should be? Gallipolice. If it was a restaurant in New Jersey,
I love the spelling Gallipolice.
Yeah, but this is Gallipolice.
Yes, I think that's a very good on the road way back when we did Knights of the Golden Circle, and we had someone very kindly write into us saying, hey, gentlemen, Prescott is actually, that's how she said it, Prescott.
I cut you off like I knew, but I was
I'm not telling you the story.
Yeah, it was news to me as well. Sorry.
She said it's called Prescott by the locals. So I asked a good friend of mine I work with named John. He grew up in the Phoenix area all his life, has relatives all around that area. And I asked him, hey, do people call it Prescott? He goes, no, I've never heard anybody say that except for my stepfather, but he's from Alabama, and he calls it Prescott.
Well, in the South, we have biscuits, not biscuits.
Exactly. So my point is that I'm sure there's a lot of people that do call it Prescott. I've heard it on news reports from the area. Basically, I've heard it called Prescott by local people, but I've also heard maybe even who call it Prescott. So, you know what? Go with the one you like.
Yeah. I want to make one other correction. I mistakenly said in the last episode that live broadcast of I Love Lucy had just passed Pluto in the last decade. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. In fact, today, Twitter user Chance Rubbage, who follows us.
Is that a real name?
Well, if they had their real name, I would have said it. I guess I don't even know if it's matter. But Chance Rubbage, who follows us, pointed out that at the speed of light, which is also the speed of radio transmission or television, Pluto's only about 4 hours away. So I couldn't have been more off base on that. But on the plus side, it did cause me to dig up the news stories that inspired my observation about I Love Lucy going into the far reaches of space. I found two. One was an NPR story that Robert Crowley did.
Yeah.
Before Radiolab, I'm pretty sure. I don't know what Radiolab's first episode was.
He'd been the science reporter.
Yeah.
It didn't cost me, but it passed Pluto in the last decade. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. In fact, today, Twitter user Chance Rubbage follows us.
Is that a real name?
I love Rubbage. If they had their real name, I would have said it. I don't even know if it's man or woman. But Chance Rubbage, who follows us, pointed out that at speed of light, which is also the speed of a radio transmission, television line, Pluto's only about 4 hours away. So I couldn't have been more off base on that. But on the plus side, it did cause me to dig up the news stories that inspired my observation about I Love Lucy going into the far reaches of space. I found two. One was an NPR story that Robert Krulwich did. Yeah, before Radiolab, I'm pretty sure. I don't know what Radiolab's first episode was.
He's been the science reporter for a long time.
This is an older story. And then there's another story. Anyway, we've got both links about the propagation of live television and radio into deep space. Those links are in the show notes, so you guys should check them out. It's fascinating. Okay, so last week we introduced you to the story of the Mothman, and we showed you how that story is really so much more than just the Mothman alone.
He's symbolic for so much other phenomena.
It's like the umbrella. The Mothman's wings are the umbrella over a series of events that, like I said, are not too different from Skinwalker. They run the gamut from...
You could start with cryptid or cryptozoology because it's a creature.
Yes.
But with him, he drags everything else with him.
Yeah, and it's a creature that doesn't behave like a earthly animal. Yeah, right. It does not, because it would be a different thing if in the course of the story you heard a behavior that you could ascribe to other birds or flying creatures.
Well, but it doesn't behave that way. Even the chupacabra is behaving like a canine.
Exactly.
A dog, it bites, apparently likes a lot of blood, but there's nothing really weirdly paranormal. That's a real true cryptid. It's not really like a dog, it's not really like a coyote or anything else we know. Maybe it has mange, who knows? It has a weird gait. We don't see it smoking cigarettes or wearing Banana Republic clothes.
Well, yes, and in some cases the stories of the big feeds. They resemble primate behavior. So you tend to think, oh, it's a more earthly creature. However, we have talked many times in the past couple of months about Bigfoot and Sasquatch being capable of something more than earthly travel. So, anyway, we digress already. We better get started here. We also covered the story of Indrid Cold when he encountered Will Petrie, Woody Derenberger. We talked about Woody Derenberger's first meeting with Indrid Cold, who was a frighteningly calm, otherworldly humanoid that kind of defied description. And since then, we actually have been graced with another piece of original artwork by illustrator Chad Lewis, who was very lucky to be partnered up with, for lack of a better word. He's been doing some amazing work for the show, and we really appreciate it.
It's less scary, but it's creepy. I just love him because just the expression on his face, he nailed it, I think.
Yeah.
And I told him to verge on the impossible smile.
Yes.
But he contained it, so it's just like, oh, I'm very glad to meet you, but maybe a little too glad.
Yes.
It's like,
talking to you. We also told you the story about Newell Partridge, otherwise known as Merle, to his friends, and his bird dog Bandit, who the Mothman absconded with, or possibly. Well, I mean, Bandit went out there and it wasn't there anymore. She never seen again. Marie pointed out, Marie, who was a big fan of Snowball, who died in the Delphus Ram case.
Oh, you guys were bagging on him earlier. And then
well, she said, I got to thinking after these disappearances of Bandit and the three blue healers on Skinwalker Ranch that maybe Snowball knew what was up.
Yeah.
He was better at self-preservation.
He controlled himself. That's one squirrel I don't want to hunt.
Snowball might have been smarter than the other dogs. With all due respect to poor Bandit and the blue healers on
Well,
Skinwalker.
yeah, I think there was a little bit of evidence left behind. Terry Sherman. But Terry Sherman, that's where he came to that conclusion. Their dog. Now with Merle, big muscular German Shepherd, it disappeared. But again, another interesting aspect was the large dog by the side of the road, seen by Linda Scarberry and her boyfriend and the other couple.
Yeah.
And when they came back with the sheriff, it was gone.
It was dead too, though.
Yeah, when they drove by.
When you said by the side of the road.
No, it wasn't walking. Yeah, it wasn't like sitting there waiting for a ride.
Maybe it was gray that it was dropped.
You don't know.
And then it vanished. And it took them from the time they filed the police report and headed back out to the TT area with Deputy Halston. The dog had disappeared. Which may have been. Anyway, that's the other story we relayed to you. It was about Roger and Linda Scarberry and Stephen Mary Millette, who fled the TNT area at speeds of up to 100 miles per hour as they were being chased by the Mothman, who was keeping up with them. Yes, they were flying at Roger's 57 Chevy. Now it's time to go deeper on this story. Tonight we're going to take a look at some of the other legends surrounding this creature and more of the events surrounding those 13 months in 1966 and 67 that led up to a horrible tragedy in Point Pleasant that is still felt by members of that community today. When you look at the totality of this story, it's easy to see how hysteria can creep into the consciousness of the local residents, and people might begin piling on, their minds playing tricks on them. And that's an easy out for people that don't want to believe that something so frightening might really exist. We'll talk more about the possibility of mass hysteria and other explanations, including supernatural ones in part 4. But for tonight, we wanted to paint a more thorough picture of all the other types of events that were occurring concurrently, including the additional Mothman sightings. Let's take a closer look at Point Pleasant and the Ohio River Valley during the 13 months that followed the first sightings in November 1966. According to John Keel in his book, The Mothman Prophecies, early on November 17th, just 2 days after the creature chased the 4 kids out of the T&T area in their car, the music teacher was sound asleep in her bed when she heard her small dog barking and going crazy around 4:45 in the morning. This woman, Mrs. Roy Crows, seemed to recall that the moon was out and very bright that night, and she looked out her kitchen window and saw a circular object across the road over the trees. It was as big as a house and brightly lit with red and green lights. She told Keel that she was about to wake her husband up when the craft zigzagged away and vanished. Later that same day, a 17-year-old boy reported that a huge bird suddenly dove at his car and followed him for nearly a mile.
The stronger side is the one
almost directly in front of her house. The day after that, Paul Yoder and Benjamin Eakes, a couple of firemen, were out of the TMT area and said they saw a huge bird with giant red eyes. Keel goes on to say it was definitely a bird, but it was huge. The creature was turning up everywhere in the area. There were so many sightings like that. There were so many people that were seeing it, and they would say, "Oh, it was a bird," but it's huge. And even the people that said it was a bird said they'd never seen anything that large in their lives. And other people said, "No, this was a man with wings." Well, yeah, these people aren't rubes. And there's a certain amount, and this is something that you mentioned about the movie, and we know that some of you haven't seen the movie yet, and we advise you to wait until we finish the series, but they're not going to confuse a crane for something that they would describe as a Mothman, especially not a sighting in broad daylight. They know what a crane looks like. A regular city slicker might be confused because guess what? They're not out in nature as much as these folks are. They know their surroundings, they know their environment, they know animals. These people hunt, fish. When they say that they saw something that was not a bird, I tend to believe them much more than I would some highfalutin person in a big city who never seen many animals except on TV. It's like the description Lucas said. This thing had big, muscular, man-like legs, not skinny bird legs. Yeah, and as you said earlier with Burl, these eyes that far away, reflecting that much light and that big around, there's no beady bird eyes. The 2 birds that you hear the most, yeah, some the sandhill crane, and grow very, very large, but not that big. But their eyes aren't that big. No, there's not tiny little bird eyes. They do have red on their head, yeah, but it's not reflective. No, and the red is not 2 red dots. No, it's just like a skull cap. Yeah, yes, their crown area, so the forehead area of the bird is just red. It's not even really that iridescent, right? It's just one red spot. It's not emitting light, and it wasn't even reflecting light. So the other bird is the barred owl, yes, which are large, but no, we're talking huge. Barred owls are also nocturnal, as all owls are, I believe. I'm no ornithologist. Yeah, you see them in the daytime flight. You do, but not as much. I see one here in LA, actually. Yeah, but it's near Griffin Park, so that's the territory, but it was weird because it was sitting in a fast food restaurant sign just about out of the park. So, that was one of those plastic ones. Well, you didn't see many pictures around because I think the owl was eating them. So, they're animals, they have their hunting territory. You can hear them when they're giving up to females, and there's no bird that's man-sized anywhere. Years ago, I looked up the pterodactyl because I felt like, could those really carry off somebody? And those might get to be about 5 feet from typical beak, tail 5 or 6 feet. I'm totally talking about that right here. They always get in trouble. Yeah, you know what? Wasn't there another? I thought there was some other giant.
this is going to come up again in the theories episode. No, but there's larger ones. But there's no giant prehistoric bird that's, let's say, the size of a crocodile. You know, that no, but there's that famous picture of Dr. What's his name in the theories episode that standing in front of a large black bird in construction. Oh, okay. Well, how long is it though? Well, it's like a bus. No. Yeah, you've seen that picture. It was in the Guinness Book of World Records. I don't know. Well, we'll come back to it. My point is that there's a reason birds are the size they are, and they can only fly so fast. Now, sandhill cranes are great at gliding, but they don't really dive and swoop like a peregrine falcon, 220 miles an hour down to the car. Right. So that's another thing. I don't believe that they can flap and keep up 200 miles an hour. Anyway, but you know, they smallcast it. Yeah. Well, there's a thing about Mrs. Rose's story, though, that I looked into just because that's kind of what we do here in the show. And when she was talking about the craft that zigzagged around, woke her up at 4:45 in the morning. On that day, November 17th, in West Virginia, the moon wasn't out at 4:45 in the morning. It rose and set much later that day, coming up a little after noon and setting a little before 10 p.m. And on top of that, it was waxing crescent. Only 28% of it was visible, and it wasn't going to be full until 10 days later. At which point, it would have risen at 5 p.m. and set at 8 a.m., which better matches the 4:45 a.m. story for her. So, on the surface, your first reaction might be, well, she must be lying. Maybe she made the whole thing up. Or maybe there's other factors that could be at play here. She obviously could have been dreaming. Maybe it was a dream. She also could have been mistaken about the date. I don't know when Keel talked to her. He doesn't mention that in his book. But maybe she misremembered the date. Or maybe what she thought was the name was something else. The question is, were her senses being manipulated? That seems to happen again and again with these stories. The events appear in a form that you can understand, but including conjecturing it as I don't necessarily think, oh, she made the whole thing up. I do think it's possible that it was a dream. Well, how important is the moon? Did it turn into something else? No, it didn't, but she said she specifically remembered that it was out very bright. Right. So, well, at least according to the Naval Observatory, it was not out at 4:45 a.m. on that day. Yeah. So, was it a different day? I don't know. I've often wondered, unlike the Delphus Ring story, people will say, like, well, we already saw the moon, come on. He's like, well, no, I know what the moon looks like. It's far away in another direction. And also, we've checked that. Yeah, the moon, in that particular story, we were able to find that it was out, but it was not as like in the sky. No, but it's people telling him what he saw. Yeah. It is interesting, though, that on the very same day, the 17-year-old reported being chased by a large bird in his car around 7, which is pretty much right in front of Mrs. Rose's house. And there's no way that boy could have known about her sighting. In fact, she didn't even tell her whole family about it until a few weeks later. Was that boy's name Tom Urey? His name isn't mentioned in his book, only because I saw an interview with a guy. He may have been older, I believe. I don't know if he was a shoe salesman. He was driving and he described that. And the only thing that just stuck out is that it will have a link to this documentary, which I believe was we mentioned in the first part. It was pretty well done. That's yes, I think it was done in conjunction with the movie. It has a few factual errors. Well, there's a few things which are not fully explained, which lead to errors and kind of an error by omission. So they interviewed this guy. He was a witness. And he doesn't look all that old now. So he's probably in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. But they showed him a picture of Sandhill Crane. He's like, no. Yeah. With all due respect to the professor of wildlife at the University of West Virginia. Yeah, the guy. Yeah. He said, no. Wrong color, skinny legs. This is not it. Yeah. But his name was Tom Urey, and he's because he had because Keel doesn't mention the name in the book in his book. Right. Okay. Have to look at his notes or find something else he published about that particular incident to gotcha. But it could be the same guy. Yeah. Man, some of these inward cold type stories are so strange. I mean, think about it. They can manage to get to our dimension in a flying tin can, but once they step out, they don't even know what time it is. I know. And if he'd had about $100 on him, he could get a really cool looking watch from movement to go with the rest of his outfit. Yeah, Ingrid's got a pretty sharp look to him. The shimmering metallic overcoat, the metallic looking pants and shirt. You know, if I saw him wearing a movement watch, I would just think that that's what they're wearing in a much hipper and fashion forward dimension than ours. Well, that's the point with movement. You don't have to go through a wormhole flying on the air to look like a peep from an advanced civilization. You can get a stylish quality timepiece at an affordable price because movement watches start at just $95.
They have a wide selection for men and women, and when you want to switch up your look, you can get interchangeable straps to go with whatever you're wearing. But at that price, you really can't afford to get a couple of watches, like some for work and some for when you're really dressed to the nines. They also have chic sunglasses for when you want to go for that Men in Black new hotness look. I love the idea behind Movement as a company. Two broke college guys wanted to wear classy, stylish watches, but they couldn't afford what was available to them in stores, so they started their own company. They figured they could sell directly to people on the internet and cut out the middleman's retail market, which means you get all the high-end design and craftsmanship at the best possible price. They've now sold over 500,000 watches in 160 countries. No matter where or when you are in the multiverse, you can look at $1 million, starting at just $95. And with free shipping and free returns, it could be easier to step up your watch game and start looking like a sophisticated adult human who knows what time it is. Get 50% off today by going to movementwatches.com/legends. That's MVMTwatches.com/legends. Join the movement.
Sean,
this message. Later that same November, Kill reported that 5 teenagers were out for a drive when they saw a man-sized bird-like creature by a rock quarry. They saw them and turned and ran into the woods. The person is saying no one believed them because they were kids, but they were genuinely scared. And another side, an elderly businessman in Point Pleasant became concerned when he heard his dog going crazy outside. He went outside and came face to face with what he described to Keel as a 7-foot-tall, gray apparition with flaming eyes. He apparently went into some kind of trance and lost track of time for a moment. I guess no one can say what happened between him and the creature during those moments, but eventually it flew away. He was so beside himself with shock and fear, and he looked so pale that when he stumbled back inside, his wife thought he was in the throes of a heart attack. Here we go with more sights in my yard. It's flying over my car. People everywhere are reporting this thing. And you know what's interesting to me about it too is this sort of trance phase. A lot of people describe that. Yeah, that's very interesting that you mentioned the word trance, because I was watching one of the other interviews from this documentary where that's exactly described. And it's Marcella Bennett, and she was much younger at the time. She's on camera in this interview telling about this incident. And what happened is that her and her brother were headed to the T&T area to visit some relatives who kind of live on the outskirts of the area. And she had her 3-year-old daughter with her. He pulled them in the car. And as they're getting out, her brother had noticed something unusual in the sky. Lights or something odd, and he wanted her to look at it. Kate took a visit. She had no interest. She did not want to look at it. As she's making her way to the house with her daughter in arms, there's some kind of figure that she notices at the corner of her eye. And yeah, it's some kind of man or creature or something. And at that point, she goes into a trance. She falls down into paralysis, and she realizes that I've just fallen on my daughter, but I can't help it. I can't move. And this thing is coming up to me. She can sense this thing is approaching, but she can't move. And she realizes that I have to get into the house as quickly as possible. And I believe her brother has already made his way in and out of the door. Well, she is able to regain strength in her legs. She comes out of it. She scoops up her daughter, and they run inside as fast as they can. They slam the doors. Now, the problem is, this thing has not gone away. It's still coming. It's making its way to the porch. And they can hear it walking up the stairs on the porch. And now it's peeking inside the house. So, well, mention that they're freaking out. They call the authorities. By the time they came out, this thing had gone, of course. They were terrified. And to this day, she is terrified and, was traumatized and had to seek medical attention, like counseling and that, because it was so different. It's not being spooked by a deer coming up to eat your flowers. What's fascinating about this, first of all, and again, we go back to the trance. People are falling into trances. They're losing track of time. They don't even gentleman on his porch. It's like it's got a hypnotic quality. Well, Keel mentions that too. He apparently had a fascination with hypnotism himself. Yeah. book. But the other thing I want to make clear is in part one, we talked a lot about nocturnal sightings of this thing. It was seen plenty of times in broad daylight. We're going to discuss it because in broad daylight, it's a lot harder to mistake something for something else. Well, yeah, if the sun is out, you can clearly see what you're looking at. You're also less likely, as a general member of humanity, to be under the influence of something.
We did get a substance.
A substance, yes. This is broad daylight with these people. And my question for you is, not that you would have these answers. This thing wants to be seen. It has no fear of being seen. In fact, it's like it's trying to make contact.
Yeah, in some cases it does. In some others, it's kind of just doing its thing, sitting in the tree, swooping down, flying around. Maybe it buzzes somebody. That was the case of the 5 grave diggers in Glendon.
Yeah, we put the emphasis on it. Yeah, we got an email about it today. Glendon.
They saw this thing sitting in the trees. They all noticed it. A large brown man with wings. And he swooped over the car. Not real low, so they all had to hit the ground. It's like someone.
Are you talking about grave diggers again?
Yeah, that was
I thought
not
we were standing in a hole.
No, they're not all in the grave.
No, but you said swooped over the car.
They had a vehicle they arrived to the cemetery with. They said it kind of.
Make sure we get the story.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
Even
so
though
they
they think that story might be made up anyway.
I'm not sure it's made up.
It's uncorroborated.
It's uncorroborated. Well,
Except for by the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce.
It's ahead of it by a day or so.
Yeah, which is the time to be the first sighting.
Yeah, there's no festival that they're trying to beat them out. This thing flies over, and it's not attacking them. It's not doing a trickstery move, but it doesn't really care that it's being seen.
Yeah.
Much like a lot of people say with UFOs, they claim there's cloaking devices and some and a zip away, but in a lot of cases it seems like they don't care that there's a busy highway or that people are noticing them. They're just out kind of doing their thing.
Yeah,
same with this. But in this case, though, I would say these stories much more lean towards this thing. If it is, as people have described, it's looking for some kind of interaction. Well, but it's not doing it very well.
Right, and the other thought is that in a method that's similar to Indrid Cold, these encounters do seem to have a psychological, almost telepathic component to them.
Yes, an emotional telepathy of sorts, too.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little bit about Connie Carpenter. She had one of the most intense sightings because technically it's a trace evidence case, which is, as we all know, several episodes of our show, is my favorite kind of UFO case when it leaves something behind.
A close encounter of the second kind, right? There's trace evidence.
Yes, by the Heineck. And I don't know if this qualifies as trace evidence because it's actually a physical element, but I think it does. Connie was Mary Hyer's niece. To remind everyone who Mary Hyer was, she was the journalist in Point Pleasant that wrote for The Messenger, which I think was based in a different town. Athens.
Yes.
Messenger.
Yeah.
But she had an office in Point Pleasant where she worked.
Athens, Ohio.
Excuse me, Athens, Ohio. Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. I knew that Athens wasn't Ohio. I knew that.
Or is it Athens?
Stop. But anyway, John Keel and Mary Hyer became pretty good friends and investigated together during the 13-month period that I'm covering in this series. So Connie was Mary Hyer's niece, and on Sunday, November 27, 1966, Connie was on her way home from church. This is broad daylight. It was actually about 10:30 in the morning on a Sunday. Not a nighttime sighting. She was driving past what is now known as the Riverside Golf Club in Mason, West Virginia, just 25 minutes north of Point Pleasant.
I know if I like that move for the
To give you an
Steelers.
idea of
Like
the
I say,
area,
other option was
this
just
is only 10
Fields.
miles north of the TNT area, where the Mothman was thought to have possibly lived. The TNT area, which we mentioned before in part one, which was a former military munitions base and storage area for explosive ordnance.
They were manufacturing and storing it there.
Yes.
And that accounts for the concrete igloos that were there. So there was a lot of really toxic chemicals that have leached into the ground and therefore into the surrounding pond. So again, it's a super fun site.
Yes.
Require life.
Yes, it's also part of the Atlantic Wildlife Management Area, which super fun sites and wildlife areas.
It's going to be, in some area.
But the TNT area is nearly exactly halfway between Point Pleasant and Mason, where the golf club is and was that Connie was driving by. So she driving past this place in broad daylight, and she saw a huge gray figure. She couldn't help but slow down, try to figure out what it was. It was over 7 feet tall, and it had gigantic, glowing red eyes. This is in the daytime. So now we've got glowing red eyes in the daytime, which rules out nocturnal eye shine, which we've all seen, and which some people have every time they're photographed.
We always say this in a description. It's almost a cliche. It's like everything's got red glowing eyes. But a lot of that you can say, yeah, it's just how you're looking at it at nighttime. I saw something in the mirror at night in the bathroom and had red glowing eyes. Well, maybe, whatever it is. It's weird it's there in the first place. You can say maybe there's a light shining off of it. But more and more, it seems like these eyes are emitting a red or orange glowing light. What is that about? What is it about their place that they're coming from that's the normal thing?
Yeah. So Connie starts slowing her car down because she's trying to figure out what this thing is. She said the eyes were focused on her, and it was staring at her, and she felt a hypnotic effect putting her into some kind of trance. She nearly wrecked her car, but somehow, almost unconsciously, continued to slow down. Then it happened. A huge pair of wings unfolded from this creature's back, spreading out at least 10 feet. They were wider than the creature was tall. For Connie, there was no question it was humanoid, and not just a bird.
Yes.
Then it defied the laws of physics as it slowly lifted up off the ground without making any kind of sound, and pointedly, without even flapping those giant wings. And to her terror, it made a beeline for her car, staring intently at her the entire time. Connie floored it to get away. She was the first of over 100 people that would have encounters during the winter between 1966 and 1967.
So I have a question. This kind of backs up that a part of her story about what I was saying previously. I knew this story, I knew Connie's story, and a couple of other things to add to it about her experience. But you're saying, though, here, that it defied the laws of physics and slowly lifted up off the ground without making any kind of sound and pointedly without even flapping its giant wings.
Yes, so that's not the only time that's been described.
Okay, so here we go. What I've been saying is that this thing looks too big and heavy to fly. Right. Within the laws of aerodynamics as we know it, there's no lift on the wings like a bird. It's
you can't just shoot straight up in the air.
Unless you're Batman.
Yeah, or Batman or Superman, exactly.
Right. It unfolds its wings and just kind of floats up into the air, right? Shoots straight up.
Yeah.
The distinction I'm making is that now we're kind of out of the realm of some kind of normal, cryptic, biological element here into something even more paranormal.
Yes. Extremely supernatural.
Exactly. So,
high strangeness.
Indeed, very high strangeness. And the fact that it can follow these cars at tremendous speed. So a regular bird usually doesn't fly that fast.
Now, I haven't even gotten to the trace evidence part of this case. First of all, Keel had said that the minute he met Connie, he knew her story was real. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One was that he describes her as a very shy, reserved 18-year-old. And as we said, his friend Mary hires niece. She wasn't seeking any kind of notoriety, and pointedly, one of the most interesting things about her was that her eyes were swollen and red. Both of them. She had conjunctivitis, otherwise known as pink eye, and it lasted for 2 weeks after that encounter. Here's the thing about conjunctivitis. Keel reports that there's a version of it called Klieg conjunctivitis. I looked this up. It's also called an actinic, if I'm saying that right, conjunctivitis. And it's brought about by exposure to actinic rays, which are green, blue, violet, or ultraviolet rays.
So you're saying that light itself can bring this condition on.
Exactly. Wikipedia states this, quote, most often the condition is caused by prolonged exposure to Klieg lights, therapeutic lamps, or acetylene torches. Other names for the condition include Klieg conjunctivitis, eye burn, arc flash, welder's conjunctivitis, flash keratoconjunctivitis, actinic ray ophthalmia, X-ray ophthalmia, and ultraviolet ray ophthalmia.
Well, there we go. We're starting to make more sense.
Now, Wikipedia goes on to point out that this particular form of conjunctivitis is prevalent among the children in the highlands of Ecuador. This supports the hypothesis that prolonged exposure to the sun and altitude in the less dense atmosphere is the main cause of the disease in that area. So the next question is, what is emanating from the Mothman, from those red eyes that's causing Connie and others to contract conjunctivitis? And what about the people that are encountering UFOs as well?
And why doesn't Lois Lane get it when Superman uses his X-ray vision?
Well, he never puts his eyes right here.
No, because you try him. But the point is that there's something being, it seems like, if this is the cause, because she wasn't the only one, and there was another young kid who, he had the same thing, and he had one, his right eye was really swollen, and as he told Keel, it never really healed after that. So it's not just her. It is kind of like people who get really sunburned, your eyes get puffy. In these cases, it really does seem more like the bacterial conjunctivitis, where it's just weeping and it's just really swollen and red. So what are they seeing that is beaming towards them that is not usually of this realm?
Here's the other thing, and this is a part of the reason that I think Spielberg probably drew a lot of this book, for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. A lot of people started to figure out that they could come to this area and go to certain places at certain times and they had a good chance of seeing the UFOs. That's how much activity was happening. And in fact, Keel talks about there was one particular point where he had gone to a known site that he and Mary would sometimes go to. And there were a couple of teenagers there, and they had built a bonfire. They had go up to them and be like, "You're going to scare them away. You need to put that out if you want to see anything."
Oh, were they there to try and see?
Yeah, they were there to try and see something. They obviously didn't know the protocol. So,
well, no, not as well as he, but it's mostly within these 13 months.
Yes, during this period, since the first Mothman sightings, and running up to the final point, which we're going to get to at the end of this part.
Right. That's also what was winding up everybody in this town. That when John Keel arrived, he said you could sense it.
There was a palpable feeling of nervousness and angst, and that's actually conveyed very well in the adaptation in the movie.
Yeah.
There was a feeling, everybody knew that something was up, but nobody could figure out what exactly it was. And to a certain extent, it could fairly be described as an ominous feeling.
Right, and for those of you who will just write it off as general mass hysteria, one, I don't think it really fits the definition of that. More so, yes, on the sociological scale, not so much on the medical, because there's different symptoms. But it's not as though there was a whole feeling of panic around a very specific thing coming into town. People just didn't know what was up, because they're hearing these stories from a lot of people, as it's been implied, who are really decent folks. Not hoaxsters, not shucksters or hucksters, you know. These are people that are known in the town. It's a very small town. Everybody knows each other. As the sheriff said, these four kids were good kids. They've never been in trouble. And they were so visibly shaken. In fact, Linda Scarberry had to have the doctor called because when she got home, she collapsed on the floor and was in just really bad state. The doctor had to come and give her sedatives. Yeah, she was that bad.
And that's not a hoax situation. Could it still be misidentification? Yeah, because they had a close encounter with an earthly creature that they just didn't recognize. Yes, but whatever happened, she clearly had PTSD from a really frightening experience.
Oh, sure.
And a lot of people did, including Connie.
Connie's husband, Keith Aker, this is the same Connie Joe.
I'm pretty sure it is. There's two Connies in Keel's book, but one is this Connie and the other one, and we're going to talk about a little bit later, her and her husband and the entire family were visited by a strange man.
So Connie's husband, Keith Aker, that's her married name now, is on camera, and he wanted to set the record straight because she's still so freaked out all these many years later that she will not go on camera and talk about it. And he describes that night. They were dating at the time, 15 years. Still affects her that much. That's her so long. I was counting her fingers while you were talking. No, that's why. Yeah, right. So he describes going over to her house. Now they're dating at the time, and so he knocks on the door. Mother answers the phone and says, "Well, she's in bed, and she is not okay." He was to visit her. It took a long time to get this out of her. For her to even describe what happened, she was that shaken up. So people see weird things. I don't know. Like, do people feel this after seeing a macabre or even a Bigfoot sighting? I mean, there's people who claim to have seen Bigfoot. It's kind of exciting and sometimes upsetting, and sometimes they're freaking out. I've heard stories of people who are in their cabin, the dogs freaking out, they can hear the knocking and the vocalizations, and terrifying. But not like this.
Yeah. This is different. Well, there are multiple cases too of people who said after the encounter in their car
cars, for example, they had to pull over to the side of the road and they flew up. Does that then go along with some kind of radiation of sorts?
That's a really good question.
I don't know about that. That's a very good question. Because again, at the same time, burning your